lot because of the injuries, whatnot, and because of the decline of play on the offense with individuals. And it was more evident. It wasn't, it was more evident with Ryan Tannehill. It seemed like the microscope was on Ryan Tannehill. But there were other guys on that offense that didn't have a really good season either. But, sometimes if Ryan doesn't have a great season or a good season, it may not filter to everyone. But if the receivers are not doing what they're doing, or if they're not on the field, they're inconsistent, that all falls back on Ryan Tannehill, and it affects his numbers and his play. And I think that's what happened last year. Now, listen, I'm not going to take away from what he did in the playoffs. That was just a bad game. But during the season, I think it wasn't just Ryan Tannehill. It was everybody else. But because he's a quarterback, everybody points at Ryan first.
Last year's stuff is well documented.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard to answer because they've changed so many things, what it's going to look like this year. But I would be hard-pressed, Caroline, to think it's going to be as high of a set of adverse circumstances as it was last year for Ryan Tannehill. For example, the whole dream, when they traded for Julio Jones, think about how much time we spent with the excitement, the possibilities of Julio Jones and A.J. Brown together, coming off of the great year that Tannehill had the year before, where he had his best year, stats, lights out. He was up, in the discussion of Tier
MVP.
1 quarterbacks. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was discussion. He was in the discussion. And now we're talking about this year, clearly a Tier 3 quarterback based on what happened last year. But Football Outsiders, only 30% of his dropbacks last year, not his passes, but just the times he dropped back to throw, only 30% of the time did he have Julio Jones and A.J. Brown on the field at the same time. And I'll be honest, I was surprised it was 30%. I would have guessed it was a little less than that.
It's a lot higher than I thought, yeah. Especially with Julio.
Yeah, because it seemed like he was never there. And there were games where A.J. Brown was playing, but he wasn't playing a lot. He was playing hurt. Brown was, Brown with some injury issues played only 13 games, period. So he missed 4 entirely, and he appeared in 80% of the offensive snaps in only 5 games. Only 5 games all year was he on the field for 80% of the time. So that shows you that he just wasn't there that much. And we don't even want to talk about Julio. He was almost never there, it seemed like. Maybe towards the end you started to see a glimpse of it, which is why it was so disappointing what happened in the Bengals game, because it finally looked like Julio Jones could give them something. But, now you just scrap all of that because they don't have either one of these guys to begin with. So you're redefining roles. Mm-hmm. We've all been encouraged, I think, of the first week of practice or so, where he's got the new set of guys that are there every day, and hopefully they're building something.
And that would totally explain, and that would make you feel more confident about Ryan Tannehill. This mic stand.
Oh, yeah. Good luck with that. We should have warned you. I was thinking you probably should have chosen a different seat. You should have kicked Eric out of his seat or me out of this seat, because that mic is a problem.
No wonder he didn't say anything, Willie. He would be stuck in this seat. Jeez.
We need those things that Ladarius uses to weigh down our tent
Yeah.
at training camp. We need a weight to weight down that mic.
It's bad. Support.
It's bad.
Well, while I perform, a little bit of construction.
I feel like it's like a
mic
70s comedy show, like the Tim Conway show or Carol Burnett, one of those variety shows. Yeah, it's like
that we mess with the newcomer.
Mess with the rookie, make the mic down. Oh.
DMase to hold this up.
So
for me.
We'll figure it out.
Here.
We're doing something at the break.
Yeah, DMase has got bigger muscles than I do. I don't think that's any sort of hot take, so he can hold up this mic for me. But to your point, Willie, about the pass catchers, that's very clear that A.J. Brown and Julio Jones were so incredibly inconsistent. So if you were somebody, a Titans fan, that looked at the receivers, or this revolving door of the Nick Westbrook-Akinas and the Mason Kinseys that were coming in big games, and those had to be Tannehill's top targets, if you said that's the reason why he regressed in 21, then you would probably look at this new set of receivers and say, yeah, that makes me feel better, that Tannehill in 22 can resemble the 19 or the 20 Tannehill. But I also look at a couple of the other, kind of theories that were thrown out there about Tannehill's regression, being the offensive line and the offensive coordinator. Because if you are someone that said, well, Tannehill just didn't have enough protection and Tannehill just got drilled, which is true. Go back to that Jets game and Tannehill was on the ground more than he was upright. you probably don't feel as good about Ryan Tannehill going into this season about being able to recreate what he did in the past because the Titans didn't do anything to address the offensive line. And the offensive coordinator is the same. And you could say, okay, well, Tim Kelly coming in, maybe that'll kind of support Todd Downing a little bit in terms of offensive play calling or offensive scheme. But I don't know what Tim Kelly's doing. I don't think anybody knows the role of Tim Kelly if you're not in that building. So I think this whole concept of what can Ryan Tannehill produce in 2022, I think it totally depends on why you think he regressed in 21.
Well,
and the tight end as well. At least they address the tight end position. So if you think the tight end position was the reason why, losing Johnny Smith and not having a go-to tight end in those kind of short yardage situations, which I think Tannehill feels most comfortable doing, you would say, well, he's got Austin Hooper and Chigga Conquell. He'll be set at the tight end position.
Well, yeah, and we can point at the tangible things, the things that is obvious. Well, he did have injuries last year on the offense. The offensive line wasn't quite put together, especially at the right tackle, and they're still having right tackle issues right now. They haven't solidified a true starter at that position. And then the guard position, we're losing Roger Saffold. He was there last year, but now it's something different. So these are things that we can point to and say, well, this year they have Derrick Henry back. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. They have now what they believe is a bona fide tight end in Hooper. Then they went out and drafted another young guy in Chig. So they believe at the tight end position, they're much better. The receiver and the tackle position is still a question mark. I know we love what we've saw so far in camp, but it's still a big question mark, Guys staying healthy, guys picking up the offense as quickly as possible. And the only one guy, and I said this yesterday, Willie, the only one guy that he has any rapport with is Nick Westbrook-Akina.
Isn't that crazy?
That's the only guy.
He's really the only guy in the same role that he was in last
Exactly.
year, presumably.
So it's going to be up to – this is the time where – this is the moment where Downing needs to take a step, and I mean a big step, because I know, and no one wants to talk about this, especially Vrabel, his aspirations is to be a head coach. So you have to be able to take an offense that struggled last year, and you have to show that you have put this offense in a position where it has made a significant jump, far past, just Derrick Henry being back in the backfield or having new wide receivers or new tight ends. You have to show that you are a legitimate play caller in this league, and I think that's why Vrabel chose to hire Kelly, because like Schwartz helped last year with the defense, he believes Kelly can do that sort of in the background with Downing.
But I do kind of struggle with that with Jim Schwartz because I think a lot of Titans fans viewed it as, okay, the 2020 Titans defense was awful. The 2021 Titans defense was great, and Jim Schwartz could be the difference. I don't know how much we can point the improvement of the Titans defense to Jim Schwartz, or is it just you bring in Danico Autry and Bud Dupree and you add more elements to this defensive line? I think both can be true, but I think the more glaringly obvious addition to this Titans defense is more so the addition of Bud Dupree and Danico Autry. But we don't know what Jim Schwartz does. And it's the same thing with Tim Kelly. We don't know what Tim Kelly does.
What is it that you do?
Because this year, if the Titans offense just absolutely pops off as one of the top offenses in the league, you could say, well, that was Tim Kelly, or was it Robert Woods and Treylon Burks and Austin Hooper? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have a thought, we'll get into your phones, your calls, your texts. Plus, DMase brings up the tackle position because there is a question mark there. I thought that I was onto something. I thought I answered that question, but now I'm not so sure. So we'll get into that coming up next. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe, Willie Donick, Derek Mason. It's Chase, Willie, and DMase on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Get ready for back to school at Electronic Express. Get an LG 55-inch 4K TV for $399 or a Hot Point washer and dryer pair for $849. Save up to 40% in every department at Electronic Express. Computers, appliances, 4K TVs, housewares, furniture, mattresses, and more. Don't miss out on a Lenovo 2-in-1 computer for $699 or an Elite Gourmet air fryer for just $49. Shop in-store or online with free financing. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
When looking for quality recreational sports in Nashville, look no further than Mid-State Sports. With over 25,000 participants, they're one of the largest sports organizations in the Southeast. Fall registration is now open for youth soccer for boys and girls aged 3 to 13. Registration is also open for adult sports like softball, sand volleyball, soccer, flag football, kickball, and basketball. For a full list of youth and adult sports leagues, check out midstatesports.com.
Are you sick and tired of constant pain in your knees, hips, or back? Especially this time of the year. You need to be moving pain-free, right? Hey, Willy Donick here for the team at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is helping people every day, giving them lasting pain relief using the latest advances in regenerative medicine. The science is simple. They concentrate your own body's healing agents and apply them to your aching joints, restoring and repairing the damaged tissue. No drugs, no steroids, no surgery. The old remedies for pain are not the only remedies. You need to learn more about how regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics can change your life. Make this the last summer you suffer from chronic pain. They've got clinics here and all over America. This is the exciting new, natural way to deal with joint pain. No side effects, no downtime. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
This September, the Chainsmokers hit Music City at the Blended Wine and Music Festival. 24 bands, 2 stages, 1 weekend, all under the Nashville skyline. Performances by the Chainsmokers, Loud Luxury, Sick Kick, Fetty Wap, Breland, and more. September 10th and 11th, the ultimate social experience drops in Music City. Enjoy a massive 100-foot wine tent, culinary village, and wellness lounge. Get tickets now at blendedfestival.com.
Smokeville Smoke Shop has been serving Hendersonville and Metro Nashville since 2015 and is committed to providing high quality, hands-on, and personable customer service. Stop into Smokeville Smoke Shops in Hendersonville, Gallatin, Hermitage, and Goodlettsville to try any of their wide selection of locally sourced products and selection of top nationwide brands including vapes, hookah, hand-blown glass, detox systems, e-juices, kratom products, leaf wraps, a dab bar at the Hendersonville location, and much more. Visit Smokeville Smoke Shops today.
It's on. It's happening.
Remember, you can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter.
Get out of the way, I'm watching the game.
Presented by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. This is Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Welcome into Chase, Willy, and DMase. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe today. We're just breaking down, can Ryan Tannehill recreate what he did in 2019 and 2020, kind of put 2021 behind him and go back to what he was at the beginning of his Titans years? I think that depends on whatever you thought was the reason why he regressed in 2021. And one of the theories that was thrown out there was the offensive line, that there was just not enough protection. That was just not a good enough, solid enough offensive line to make Ryan Tannehill feel protected in the pocket. So I had a kind of a theory, considering that the right tackle position, Vrabel even said it, that right tackle position along with the left guard position, they're both up for grabs. It's a competition in camp. And Dylan Radins has been a name that's been thrown around about being that in that right tackle position. And from what I have seen, at least, and from what I have heard from the Titans coaches, what I can interpret is he's just not quite there yet. That he is just not going to be, he's not going to be a top right tackle in the league, and I don't think that's by any means a hyperbole. So my thought was, are the Titans going to use one of their draft picks to potentially be in this competition, the right tackle position, and will that eventually be the answer at the right tackle position? If Dylan Radins isn't ready to start in that right tackle position, is Nicholas Petit-Frere potentially the person that can fill in that position. And I know as a rookie, filling in at a starting right tackle position, he was a third round pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to ask. And I know that he started at the left tackle position at Ohio State. That is his position. But I thought if the right tackle position is a question mark, is he in consideration for it? This was Todd Downing yesterday at practice about Nicholas Petit-Frere's development and how he's been in camp.
How have you seen it? Nicholas shown you, and does he have the potential to be ready to start this season?
I think he's grown each day as well. It's exciting to see him apply some of the techniques that we asked him to work on from the off season and early pre-camp, and now seeing it show up against some of our vets. And I think that he's another guy that's continuing to grow with each rep and each opportunity. And, as far as the starting component of things, we're early in the process there. So we'll see where that develops. He'll certainly get opportunities, to get a lot of reps here in the preseason and in pads and all that. So probably a little premature on that, but he certainly has potential.
It's a little premature. It doesn't make you feel incredibly confident about Nicholas Petit-Frere's ability to win over this right tackle position. I know it's still early in camp.
Mm-hmm.
I know he can continue to develop, but what exactly does that mean? As an NFL veteran, we had Trevor Maddich on the show yesterday on Stillman and Company to kind of be our translator of exactly what Todd Downing means. This is what Trevor Maddich had to say.
Yeah, my translation of that is what he's saying is, there are some rookies that come in and take the bull by the horns, and you know that they're going to contribute this year. This guy ain't one of them. And he's getting a little better at certain things, but I can't even tell you that I think he'll be a backup right now. I can't tell you that I think he'll even continue to grow enough to compete for a starting job right now. All I can tell you is that he's not as horrible as he was when he first showed up. That's what I'm hearing. Now, I'm not saying that's true about the kid, but that's what I'm hearing with that kind of commentary.
Okay, so Trevor, to be fair, Trevor Maddich has not been out at camp, but he's, quote-unquote, per Trevor's translation of what Todd Downing said, not as horrible as he was when he first showed up. So my theory that I had about Nicholas Petit-Frere potentially, biting at the heels of Dylan Radins to win over this right tackle spot, that maybe there really is an answer at right tackle and Dylan Radins isn't it. The theory that I had pretty much died yesterday whenever I heard that.
The new guy's got to be better.
Yeah.
No, he's really not.
But maybe not. Yeah.
Right.
I would tend to agree with Trevor. I think it's too early to say one way or the other. But there was not a ringing endorsement by Downing to this point. I kind of sensed that as well. But I will say, remember Nate Davis's rookie year?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was even there. Like we were wondering, where is Nate Davis? Like he was in that mysterious mode that he wasn't practicing. They asked Mike Vrabel, how Mike Vrabel is with injuries in camp, and it's kind of refreshing right now. They don't have that many injuries, so he's not having to knock on wood. He's not being asked a lot about, hey, is this guy coming back to practice? There used to be a really long list. Rashaan Evans and Nate Davis, Julio Jones last year. Is Julio going to practice? We'll tell you when he's going to practice. If you see him out there, he's out there. All those things. Nate Davis was in that zone a couple years ago, and I would have thought there's no way this guy is going to help his rookie year. But then 4 or 5 weeks into the season, he was entrenched in his spot at right guard, and he's never left. He's become a really solid guy. So guys get it at different rates. It is early. I wouldn't give up on Petit-Frere at all. But Radins is the guy that's been there for a whole year. Like, I would hope he has the upper hand right now. And like we said the other day, DMase, the bar isn't that high. David Quesenberry was basically
low bar.
Yeah, he was a replacement level guy. He was a serviceable right tackle last year. So to get decent play there, you don't have to be that great. Like to maybe even improve in that position, you wouldn't have to be that great because Quesenberry was kind of a journeyman guy that worked his way up to that position.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and we went over this yesterday, but I think the Titans are looking at something more than just okay. They're not they're not saying, okay, we're going to compare the ball to Quesenberry. No, that's not what they're doing. I think they want, a tackle, that they've had, 5-10 years ago where they didn't have to worry about that position. They didn't have to worry about either tackle position. I think that's what the Titans want to get back to. If you go down the history of the Tennessee Titans or a bit of the Oilers. They've always had good tackles. Guys that were either potential Hall of Famers, or guys that were Pro Bowlers or just really solid where you didn't have to worry about it. Well, the last couple of years, that hadn't been the case. So they want to get back to a position where, whether it's, Radents or, whoever is going to ultimately win that position, they want to get back to, we don't have to worry about this for the next 5 to 10 years. Because you know what? In the past, that's been the case. Where, okay, we got our two top. You go all the way back to Brad Hopkins.
Sure.
They didn't have to worry about the and I know Brad played left, but even when they got John Runyon, they didn't have to worry about an offensive tackle.
And then when Runyon left, they had Fred Miller, who was pretty
Absolutely.
good. Like we always joke about the false starts, but he was a good.
But they didn't
solid
have
tackle.
to worry about the tackles,
Right.
the tackle position.
Big Country Stewart,
Yes.
Michael Roos. They had those guys for a long time. That's what you're looking for. Now, they have not invested a lot. Of course, we know they tried to invest a couple years ago in Isaiah Wilson. We won't even go there. That's what they had in mind here. But, it's not like they have like a first-round pick that they're counting on to be there. They're hoping a second-rounder or a third-rounder work their way up there and develop into that. So I don't know. I guess I hadn't heard of Big Country Stewart when he got drafted. I don't think he was a real high pick, and all of a sudden he was the guy. So maybe the light goes on here. I don't know. But you're hoping that it's better than last year because as we just talked about in the first segment, it was kind of a mess last year. And Taylor Lewan could really be the anchor because I thought he was just not himself for a lot of the season. He feels like himself right now, again, knock on wood. But if he could play that dominating level, that would help a lot of these other things fall into line.
And you bring up Devin Questenberry, and I think that's a fair point. But also to your point about it needs to be better than last year, because I think that's a conversation that we have a lot about the Titans pass catchers is, can Robert Woods and Treylon Burks be better than A.J. Brown and Julio Jones? Or are they as good as A.J. Brown and Julio Jones? Well, maybe they can be, but maybe that shouldn't be the standard. The standard should be when the Titans offense was one of the top offenses in the league. The Titans offense wasn't great last year. So that last year, being better than last year, shouldn't be the standard. And that's the same thing with David Questenberry. If you are thinking that you can have a right tackle position that is just as serviceable as David Questenberry, maybe that's fine. Maybe, like you said, Taylor Lewan can play that anchor position on the other side. But also, you have to build upon what you did last year, because what you did last year really wasn't that great.
Yeah, it was in the bottom 10 offensively when you really get down to everything with all the injuries thrown in there. So there were reasons for it, but the bottom line is the bar is fairly low. It wouldn't take much to have a better offense than last year. But like you said, just because it's better than last year may not be good enough to where you want to go, which is you want to be in the mix to win a title. So it needs to be quite a bit better.
Yeah, it does. And I think a lot of it depends on, how Derrick Henry is running. If Derrick Henry is running like the Derrick Henry of old, it takes pressure off of at least the right tackle because he's not pass setting all the time. He's more run blocking. And I think that's where the Titans, if you do have deficiencies in your tackle position in regards to pass blocking, well, you better be a damn good run team. So it takes pressure off of those guys to pass block or pass pro, 50, 60% of the time. My Titans want to be more. I think they want to be more of a 60-40 team, means 60% of the time we're running and 40% of the time we're passing.
I thought that was a good point. A lot of games last year, they run blocked very well.
Yeah.
Proved that when Derrick Henry got hurt, they could still open holes for the other guys. Pass blocking some weeks was a much different story, so that you could differentiate those two. The pass blocking was awful some weeks, but they still ran the ball well.
And that's what this team wants to do.
Yes.
Is run the ball well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on that. But coming up next, what have we seen so far in practice? 2 days with pads, but we have 2 more days this week with pads on. So what do we want to see? What have we seen? But what do we want to see coming up in these next few days with pads on in practice? We'll get into that coming up next. Chase, Willy, and DMase, presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, a York certified comfort expert company. Schedule now at springhillac.com.
It's training time for the Two-Tone Blue, and we have you covered. Talking Titans? Join us live from training camp for interviews and reports, giving you the latest on the Titans.
There's a lot of guys that are making an impact on me, both good and bad.
I like some of the depth. I think that's the key right now.
Training camp coverage is fueled by Parman Energy. Visit ParmanEnergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hi guys, it's Andrew. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, today, Wednesday, August 3rd, we're running an unprecedented one-day special you won't want to miss out on. Hillside Medical Clinic uses the most powerful form of wave therapy. This is a technology clinically shown to repair blood vessels and improve blood flow. We can now get rid of your erectile dysfunction without any pills. If you're ready to transform your love life, grab your phone. Today is your day. Call us now and you'll qualify for the assessment and ultrasound totally free. Also, a gift that can produce powerful results in the bedroom in minutes. You're going to love that, guys. And today only, we're offering 5 tune-up treatments to our patients free. This is our most lucrative offer ever, worth $1,000, but call today, Wednesday, and qualify totally free. 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your love life back. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now to qualify. This offer ends today. 615-576-5000.
Hey, homeowners and home buyers, listen up. Loan Pronto has 30-year fixed rates with APRs in the 4s and 15-year loans with APRs that start with 3. Hey, it's Willy Donick. Don't be confused by the media's hype about interest rates. At Loan Pronto, their rates have plummeted recently, and they're currently refinancing homeowners who locked in a 5 or 6% rate. So if you've got a rate over 5%, or if your lender has you pre-approved or locked in at anything 5% or higher, you need to call Loan Pronto now. Not all lender rates are created equal. Loan Pronto's rates are down big time, and you need to take advantage, whether you're buying, refinancing, getting cash out, or even if you just closed a few weeks ago. Call Loan Pronto today, and you could save tens of thousands of dollars. Loan Pronto can help keep more money in your pocket. Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Tune in to ESPN 102.5 The Game every Tuesday afternoon at 4:30 for ESPN's Trevor Maddich, joining me, Jared Stillman, on Stillman & Company as we dive deep into the college football world and all the latest from the SEC. It's all brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters.
Parman Energy is your one-stop petroleum solution across all of Tennessee, offering turnkey petroleum solutions for professionals in major industries, serving trucking fleets, construction companies, industrial plants, and more. Whether a large corporation or owner-operator, Parman Energy has your diesel fuel, lubricant, DEF, and equipment needs. No matter how you're getting there, start with Parman. Visit ParmanEnergy.com for more info. Your Tennessee petroleum solution, providing totally outrageous customer service.
In today's economy, employers and employees should be working together to create safe, good-paying jobs with no unnecessary government overreach. Right to work does not belong in the state constitution. Tennesseans, this voting season, vote no on Amendment 1. Visit TennesseeWorkersAlliance.org, paid for by the Nashville Building Trades.
Your home for Hit City is 94.9 The Fan.
Your Nashville Sounds continue their series against the Norfolk Tides from Virginia. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Sounds win. Pre-game at 5:20.
On your home for Sounds baseball, 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
Hey Nashville, this is Vanderbilt head coach Jerry Stackhouse. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
102.5, 106.3, The Game. Chase, Willy, and DMase. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe today. Hey, don't miss 102.5 The Game's 1-hour Big Machine Music City Grand Prix pre-race special today from 6 to 7 p.m. presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. The people have weighed in, so unless y'all have thoughts, you can go to the phones.
Bring it on.
Let's do it.
To the phones. Phone lines driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if y'all have a thought. But Andrew texts into the text line and says the offensive line sucks, but hopefully a real tight end, a slot wide receiver, can help a ton on checkdowns, hot routes, and third down.
The slot guy is going to be really interesting to watch because I think they've sort of gone away. I thought last year there were some games where they felt like they had to have a couple of tight ends in there who weren't going to catch a pass, but they were just actually extra offensive linemen to help with the pass protection, just because Quesenberry needed some help. So Swaim and those guys who, they're not going to be confused with Shannon Sharp or Sterling Sharp, or, any of those great pass-catching tight ends, Jimmy Graham, all those guys. I think hopefully if the offensive line can be better and they can find that good rhythm of the third wide receiver in the slot, that would help a lot. I do think, once again, I think it's a key point. You want to at least hope that you can maintain, because Roger Saffold, tremendous run blocker, right? I mean, big-time run blocker. He's not there. So whoever wins that left guard position, can they maintain that standard of being able to run the ball? Because that's the bread and butter. But what do you think of that slot spot, DMase? Who do you like there? Because I saw them running the kid out of UCLA, Kyle
Phillips.
Why am I Kyle Phillips. That's a guy that intrigues me a little bit. He's shown up some.
Yeah, he has, and Racy McMath has as well.
Who had himself a
he had
day
a
yesterday.
really good day yesterday. He puts himself in that category of who's going to be, our third wide receiver or the slot receiver. Let's just say slot receiver, because right now, as we look at it, it would be, if they had to start a season right now, it would be Robert Woods, Traylon Burks, and Nick Westbrook-Akina. Now, who would fill the slot position? I think it would be more so now Robert Woods than anyone else, or possibly Traylon because of his, his physique and him being able to body, some of these smaller DBs or even linebackers. He can, sort of go toe-to-toe with a linebacker in regards to height and strength. So if they're going this season now, I think those are the three. But Phillips and McMath, those guys will factor in somehow. We've always looked at the slot receiver as more of a smaller guy, shifty, quick. But I think the NFL is moving forward. They're not getting away from it, but they also want that big body guy because he's going over the middle. He's taking on those linebackers. And even in even in run situations where I can have a bigger guy in that slot to block those linebackers or those safeties. So, the Titans can go either way with this. I don't think they're pretty much locked in to one guy or another. They're going to have to continue to show that they can be a viable option for Ryan Tannehill on third down, because that is your moneymaker. If you can move the chains on third down, that makes your offense even better, and it makes your defense better because now they're sitting on the bench, and when they come out, they're fresh.
I'm interested. You brought up the blocking part because you always like to make fun of people whose strong suit is blocking. But that is an important part of what the Titans do. I'm curious about this, Derek. Are they? We pointed this out last week. Mm-hmm. Robert Woods has a history. He can play slot. He can play on the outside. Nick Westbrook-Akina, basically because he had to play a lot more than they hoped, he played everywhere last year. He played in the slot. He played outside. You just mentioned Burks and his unique skill set. How interchangeable are those? Like, if we go into a series or a game plan, based on the matchups, could I move those guys around? Could you see different guys in the slot on different situations?
Yeah,
or is that hard to do?
No, it's not hard to do. I mean, sometimes, in games, it's matchups in that slot position. It's not so much, hey, this is our guy, so we're going to put. No, it's all about matchups. If I can put a more shiftier guy on a bigger corner in the middle, then that's what I'm going to do. Well, if they got a smaller corner, then I may want to put Traylon Burks as a slot. Why? To box him out, be physical with him, and get that separation that he needs because of his big that he gets because of his big body. So they are interchangeable during the game. I can line up. I've done it plenty of times where I've lined up as a slot receiver, and then Kevin Dyson comes motioning inside of me. Now Kevin becomes the slot, or Chris or Drew. They motion inside of me. Now they become the slot guy. I become the outside guy. It's all about matchups. It's not necessarily, the guy that's catching the ball. It's about how does he match up with the guy that's their nickel guy and that's covering the slot guy.
And I guess my question for you, DMase, is there are so many receivers kind of contending. Let's say if the Titans reserve 6 spots on game day for a wide receiver, does Kyle Phillips find himself as one of those 6? Because I think a lot of people were really high on Kyle Phillips going into training camp. I'm not going to say that he's been bad by any means, because he hasn't, but I don't think that Kyle Phillips has shined necessarily as much as a Des Fitzpatrick or Racey McMath or even a Mason Kinsey, guys who I didn't expect to shine in training camp, but so far have. Of course, there's so much time left, but I do wonder, where is Kyle Phillips' role?
I think his role is he's still, fighting for that slot position. What can help him is, he's also a special team guy. He can be a returner. If they can put him at returner, whether it be punt or kickoff, that helps his cause or that helps his fight at trying to earn a position on this team or roster spot on this team. Now, I think what's going to be that point where, guys start to separate themselves, it's going to be in a few weeks when Arizona come to town and when Tampa come to town. And then the preseason games. But I think more so the practices with Tampa and Arizona. That's when guys will start to separate themselves. Who are we going to have on the outside? Who are we going to have at the slot? Because I guarantee you, if Treylon Burks has a outstanding practice versus Arizona and Tampa, and say go in the preseason, catch a few passes, that's his position. His position is he's the starter alongside Robert Woods. If Nick Westbrook, same thing with Nick Westbrook-Akina and Racey McMath. If they go out and they have outstanding play versus Arizona and Tampa, then going into the first preseason game, and it's a good preseason game, well, they've put themselves in a position where now they are considered potential starters as well. So that week versus those two teams in practice is going to be critical for everybody on the offense, but more importantly, the tackle position, the guard position, and the receiver position.
And Taylor texts into the text line and says, as it stands right now, who do you consider the odd man out in the wide receiver group?
I really don't know, because after the first 3 guys, I don't know. Racey McMath, he has stood out so far. And then the other guys, we really hadn't talked bad about them, but we really hadn't talked good about them.
They haven't stood out.
Exactly. They have not stood out other than, the 3 and McMath. That's it.
And McMath is a key part of the special teams coverage. So I feel like he's going to be in there. It's more how do those other guys fit? Because there's 2 different questions in that question. If guys are hurt, which happened a lot last year, we documented, then you really want to know, who do I have? Who can go in there and catch a few passes here? Remember that game against the Steelers? Cody Hollister was back. We hadn't seen him all year. He was in there, and they were throwing the ball to him. So you never know what that could mean in a particular week when you're down a couple of guys. But when you have everybody, you hope to not have to use 5, 6, 7. It's more about who can help me on special teams, right? I mean, those guys you hope don't have to play a whole lot, number 6 and 7. That's why if you have a big role on special teams, that's how you get in the game.
And I think
Sunday.
that's what differentiates this, the bottom half of the wide receivers who are currently on the 90-man roster. That's what differentiates them from who's going to make that final cut, is who can contribute on special teams. Because Treylon Burks can contribute on special teams. I look at Mason Kinsey. I look at Racey McMath, like you mentioned, all guys who can contribute on special teams. But if you can't contribute more than just simply the wide receiver position, I don't know if this Titan team sees as much value in those kinds of players.
Yes.
Especially when your numbers are limited.
Exactly. So, I mean, the next week or 2, next 2 weeks, I don't know when Arizona and Tampa, who comes in first? Is it Arizona that comes in first?
Arizona comes in first.
Okay.
And
so I guess
2 weeks.
So we got 2 weeks here. So I guess in the next,
a lot could happen.
Yeah, 2.5 weeks is going to be key.
A lot's already happened in 2
for
days
those guys moving forward.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on that. And also, you can watch us streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every day. Our video streaming is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Coming up next, we lost a good one in the broadcasting world, so we will honor Vin Scully coming up next. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It's Chase, Willy, and DMase.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
They're still in good shape to make the playoffs.
And I-840.
Players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
There's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 102.5 The Game.
And he has added players that do fit.
What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
From the Fox 17 News Code Red Weather Center.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobis. Today, highs in the middle 90s. And then you factor in the humidity will feel close to 100 during the afternoon. The possibility of a few isolated showers and storms. Most of us stay dry throughout today.
Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the happy face truck today.
Hey, Nashville, what's the best part of hockey? That's rhetorical. We all know the answer. It's the 3-on-3 overtime, the speed, the skill, the tic-tac-toe passing. It is electric. Well, now there is a new, totally 3-on-3 ice hockey league called 3 Ice, coming to the Music City on August 6th. They're playing at Bridgestone Arena, and tickets are available now at 3ice.com. 6 teams touring across 9 cities, playing a bracket-style tournament at each stop. It's overtime all the time. Hair on fire hockey. Log on to 3ice.com for tickets now.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try Ziprecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
This week's Nashville's best deal is from River Queen Voyages. It's a fun and unique way to cool off in Nashville this summer. Nashville's River Fun Authority gives you the best views of the city with skyline kayaking, river scavenger hunts, and a party pontoon with your own captain. Book your downtown river adventure at riverqueenvoyages.com. And while supplies last, get half off a $50 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals. That's thegamenashville.com/deals.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway. Now here's Jim Mitchell.
At Mitchell's Mr. Transmission, we also offer free towing with any major repairs. If your vehicle has a breakdown and you should need any type towing, towing is available through Dad's Towing Service. Dad's is a professional towing company in Nashville that provides all types of towing and recovery, 24 hours a day.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway.
Listen to Stillman & Company with me, Caroline Fenton, all season long on ESPN 102.5 The Game for your chance to win Nashville Sounds tickets courtesy of 312 Pizza Company in Germantown.
Robbie Stanley.
They get a lead in that game and just totally close the door.
Joe Rexrode.
If he plays next year, it's disastrous.
Robbie and Rexrode. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
I'm ready to step this up a notch.
You're listening to Chase, Willy, and DMase.
presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Chase, Willy, and DMase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe today. You're listening to Chase, Willy, and DMase live from the Hillside Medical Game Studio. Sad news that came out yesterday that longtime Hall of Fame broadcaster Vin Scully, who called games for the Dodgers for nearly 70 years, passed away at the age of 94. And you and I were just talking about it, Willy, at the break, about how Vin Scully had a knack for knowing when his words weren't necessary, for just letting the moment breathe, letting the moment kind of tell itself. And he got to describe the moment in the best possible way. And being, a younger person, I think that Vin Scully impacted me just as much as an older generation or a generation before that he really withstood the test of time and made an impact on all sports fans across different ages.
It's hard to even know where to start with his greatness because it's such a universal thing. And when he retired a few years ago, he got, I think, sort of the accolades he deserved. Major League Baseball Network, during the pandemic, they did a series of sort of documentaries, biographies on some of the greats. They have a great one on Vin Scully that Bob Costas sort of led. But that is one big element you just mentioned. His ability to know when to get out. He hits the big moment like he did on that play. 86 Mets I was watching. I was 15 years old at the time. That was my
LGM
championship. Whew. I was one step from the doorway to go to bed in disappointment, and the Mets came back. But he hits the big moment. But when the big moment happens, he gets out and lets the pictures do the talking, lets the crowd sort of tell the story for you. That's such a great teaching point that I try to think about as an announcer myself when I'm doing Predators games. Use the crowd to your advantage. He did it better than anybody else. And so when you play highlights of Vin Scully, he hits the highlights. He's great at calling the big moments. But he was also so great at the presentation of the entire game, just watching the game along with you. Baseball, I'm such a huge fan. He called some big football games. Remember the Dwight Clark game? He actually was on the call for that game for CBS. He's not as known for the football, but he was able to do other sports, but nothing like he did with baseball. But he was just the guy that you loved watching the game with because he was so great at telling the stories, knowing when to get in, get out, the timing of the whole thing, the wordsmith part of it. Unbelievable. I never got to meet him, never got to interview him, but he was always a guy that I admired because I grew up Game of the Week and the World Series, NBC. That was Vin Scully, Joe Garagiola every year. It just embedded in my DNA forever.
Well, he stayed out of the way, in calling games. And obviously the iconic voice, anytime you heard the voice, you knew exactly. Like some people, as soon as the mic is turned on and you hear just the first word, you know exactly who they are. You don't.
And
no one needs to.
Game.
Exactly. No one needs to tell you. You don't need to be there. You don't even need to see it. You hear the voice. Oh, this is a big game. Oh, this is Vince Scott. Okay, now I can really get engaged. And he was just one of those guys that knew when to interject, knew when to back off, allow the game to be played. Sometimes guys and girls, they talk over, what's going on and sometimes lose the fan base or those that are listening. But he found a way through his many experiences to, tell the story, keep everybody engaged, but then also let the baseball do what the baseball is supposed to do, keep you engaged. Not necessarily him. He's going to do his thing, but keep you engaged. Like, I can listen, back when TV wasn't prevalent. I'm sure if I was that age, I could probably listen to him and not even have to be at the game, but know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, that's another thing that he encompassed. He started in the era before television. And so the description, the real detail that you got in a radio call from him, unbelievable. And he learned from one of the early greats, Red Barber, when he was doing the Brooklyn Dodgers. But then as he transitioned to TV, he slowly made an adjustment. This was one thing that I thought was great about the MLB documentary. They showed some early telecasts that he did, and you could tell he was still trying to adjust his call. But then, boy, did he find that groove over time of how to do TV as opposed to radio, because you get that question a lot. What's the best way to do radio? What's the best way to do TV? Some guys really don't change a whole lot, but he made a great adjustment with that.
And Viking Matt in the text line just pulled up Joe Rex Road. Texts in and says, I'm a 45-year-old man who was crying during the Dodgers-Giants game last night. I felt like Vin Scully was family to a lot of Dodgers fans. And I think that is something that a lot of broadcasters hold very near and dear to your heart, is the fact that you open up your homes, your cars, your ears, your lives, open to broadcasters. And the good ones really do feel like family. And I think that that's such a wonderful testament to Vin Scully.
Great point. And see, I had no connection to the Dodgers or anything, but for a Dodger fan, or you going back before that, a Brooklyn Dodger fan. But when they went to L.A., he went to L.A. with them. And so you're right. I mean, that relationship, broadcaster to team and the fans of that team, it was really, really special. That's what you always long for when you get to call the same team's games for a long, long time. That's what you hope for something like that. And he's absolutely the best.
Youngest person to call a World Series. So, I mean, that says a lot.
Yeah,
and we can talk about him. We could talk about him all show long, but we can let him do the talking. Here are some of Vin Scully's most memorable moments and calls.
So here is Baerga. Wohlers looks in to get a sign. Big right-hander ready, delivers fastball. Hit in the air to left center on the dead run is Grissom. He's got it, and the Atlanta Braves are the champions of the world. And they are going wild. Mobbing Wohlers, a huge mile of humanity in front of the mound. The crowd dancing in the aisles, fireworks going on overhead, and quietly the Cleveland Indians slowly in single file leave their dugout.
That is the 1995 World Series. I have a funny story about that. I was doing sideline radio for the Vanderbilt radio network. George Plaster, biggest Braves fan that I know, one of many in this area, of course. Braves are on the verge of winning a World Series. That was the Tom Glavine one-hitter to beat the Indians in 95. So we did the Vanderbilt Ole Miss game that afternoon in Oxford. So we have a dilemma. What do we do? Like, we're trying to get home. We got other people on the broadcast. We're driving. And we figured we'll listen to a few innings and then find a place to watch. But if you've ever driven to Oxford, it's not like you're lined with a lot of sports bars and, really hopping areas between Oxford and Nashville to watch games. So we didn't know where we were going. There's no, navigation on your phone where you could, find a restaurant or a sports bar. And every time we stopped somewhere, they didn't have the game on. So we were listening to the radio. And we would fight. I wanted to hear the CBS radio call because Vin Scully was doing the game. George, of course, was partial to the Braves network. He wanted to hear Skip Carey call it. So we kept fighting over it. It was funny. We'd listen to 2 minutes of Vin, then flip over 2 minutes of Skip, and it was a battle. But we ended up listening almost to the entire game on the way home there. So that's one that you never forget, right? And so I didn't see the game, but I felt like I saw the game because of the greatness of Vin Scully, and, for that matter, Chip Carey.
And a great little compromise for you and George to go back and forth. At least you got your Vin Scully calls in.
Yeah, we heard a lot more of Skip than Vin, unfortunately, because I didn't have the seniority, right? George took a little. He was the play-by-play guy. He took the. So any time that he sort of got distracted, I would flip it back over. That didn't go over very well.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Again, we lost a great one yesterday, and Vin Scully, the broadcasting world, will definitely be worse off with his passing. But coming up next, the Dolphins got hit hard by the NFL for their tampering and goings-on with Tom Brady and Sean Payton. But what exactly does that mean for the Titans? We'll get into that coming up next. Chase, Willy, and DMase. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It's 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
You watch The Game.
Line to left, coming on Newstrom. Base hit, sounds win.
We talk The Game.
But they knew he'd be really good. Well, if they don't make that move, they don't win those championships.
We are The Game. Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Is your mattress keeping you up all night? Tossing and turning, needing a new mattress but don't know where to go? Well, shop at Social Furniture today, where they sell comfort. They have all of the top brands like Sealy, Stearns & Foster's, Simmons, Serta, and Purple Mattress. Social Furniture offers sofa beds, loft beds, twin beds, queen beds, king beds, kids beds, and beds for your whole family. There's no waiting, and they have same-day delivery. Visit Social Furniture in West Nashville at 5412 Charlotte Avenue. Forget the big box store. Shop local. Shop social.
I had low back pain that was due to herniated discs.
Meet Dr. Justin Garzone, another satisfied patient who found regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics.
Over a very short period of time, the pain went away completely, and I've had absolutely no symptoms or pain since my treatment.
Before Dr. Garzone found QC Kinetics, he was looking at all the old school pain treatments.
It was recommended that I have steroid injections done, but then unfortunately my insurance company said that I would have to do 3 months of physical therapy first, and I needed to get better quickly.
With QC Kinetics, the doctor got lasting relief with no downtime.
I didn't have to take any medications during my treatment. I avoided surgery, and I am now pain-free.
Don't live with chronic pain, and don't go under the knife. Call QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine, for a free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024.
Genesis Diamonds is opening up the vault with our largest GIA Diamond event ever. Starting Saturday for a limited time, all our GIA Diamond engagement rings will be marked down 20%.
That's 20% below Genesis' already unbeatable price. This means you can buy like a dealer buys with deep discounts on over $10 million in stunning diamond rings.
These remarkable savings are on every GIA Diamond engagement ring, from a half carat to 20 carats. All shapes too. Rounds, princess cuts, cushion cuts, emerald cuts, ovals, pear shapes.
Remember, all Genesis diamonds are hand-picked, come straight from the diamond cutters, and are graded by the GIA, the most prestigious gem lab in the world.
At Genesis, our everyday prices are unbeatable. But for this event, we're taking value to a whole new level with an additional 20% savings.
Don't miss this chance to save like never before on that exquisite diamond ring. Buy like a dealer buys.
Starting Saturday for a limited time, exclusively at Genesis Diamonds. Limit 1 per customer, please. Green Hills and Cool Springs. See store for details.
When that door closed behind me and I was free, the main thing I wanted to do was just re-enter society, get a job, and see my family.
It's okay.
There's a new state office of re-entry in Tennessee, specifically to help folks like me get jobs. Go to tnworkready.com or visit your local American Job Center. Re-entry is a normal thing, and it's okay.
Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
tnworkready.com.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne, Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
We got pass rushers.
Awesome game, checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Now let's see if we can bring them to life, all right?
Bringing you entertainment and informative sports talk during your workday.
Smart, funny, classy, and I like him a lot.
This is Chase, Willy, and DMase with Chase McCabe, Willy Donick,
Mason, touchdown, Tennessee,
and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, and on the Game Nashville app.
This is a new level of geek you got going on here.
Chase, Willy, and DMase is presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, a York-certified comfort expert company. You can schedule now at springhillac.com. We are live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios, and you can watch us streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every day. Our video streaming is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry, Caroline Fenton, in for Chase McCabe today, Willy Donick, Derek Mason. So we learned yesterday that the NFL threw the book at the Miami Dolphins for their tampering with Tom Brady while he was still in New England about potentially coming to the Miami Dolphins. They're tampering with Sean Payton while he was still the head coach of the New Orleans Saints to potentially come in and be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins as well. So in that time, Both of those people have retired. Of course, Tom Brady has come back, and I can only assume that Sean Payton will come back. But the NFL came down on the Dolphins, stripped the Dolphins of their 2023 first-round pick, their 2024 third-round pick. Stephen Ross, their owner, gets fined for $1.5 million, and he's also suspended. And also, an interesting part of this here, too, is that it wasn't just Stephen Ross that gets suspended. Also, some of the people underneath him have also been punished as well. I look at the Bruce Beal, who is most likely going to be, rise up whenever Stephen Ross is no longer at the helm. So I look at what has happened with the Dolphins, and of course, that is going to be a huge precedent set, and it's a huge story within the NFL. How that affects the Deshaun Watson hearing, the public perception of the NFL. There's a whole lot of PR going on within the NFL. There's all of those stories about it, and how that'll affect the NFL as a whole, how it could potentially affect the Deshaun Watson hearing. I think all of those things are on the table. But what I think is the most interesting thing here is how does that affect the Titans? And you might say, well, it's the Dolphins. How could that affect the Titans? But I look at the Miami Dolphins being a team in the AFC with a quarterback who they're really not sure of. I look at Tua this year as kind of put up or shut up time for Tua Tagovailoa. They bring in Tyreek Hill for a reason. The Dolphins say, okay, we're giving you every tool at your disposal to thrive this year. And if you still can't come in and be that first-round pick franchise quarterback that we need you to be, then the Dolphins are eventually going to have to move on. But now the Dolphins don't have a first-round pick next year. So if Tua's not the answer in Miami, what's their plan at quarterback? And so that's how I think it eventually affects the Titans, is the competition within the AFC. I look at the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills being a team that's going to compete for the AFC every year, a team that I think is poised to potentially make a run for the Super Bowl, and also is poised to make a run for the Super Bowl and be a really dominant team in years to come. And if the Dolphins aren't set up with a quarterback in the future that's going to be able to compete with the Buffalo Bills, then the Buffalo Bills are going to continue to be a dominant team in the AFC. And in that same breath, if the Dolphins don't have their answer at quarterback, they won't be a threat in the AFC, at least in the near future, because they won't have their answer at quarterback. They won't have a first-round pick next year to be able to go get and draft a quarterback. It'll be difficult for them to trade for a quarterback, seeing as they don't have a first-round pick. So to me, it seems like a much longer succession plan in Miami at the quarterback, and I think that affects the Titans in both a positive and negative way.
They do have a first-round pick. They don't have their first-round pick.
Their first-round pick.
Because they did the trade. They had the number 3 pick overall. When was that? Last year, year before, and they traded with San Francisco. So they've San Francisco.
Picks over the past couple of years,
and that is part of what they did over the time. It's kind of interesting. This whole thing is revolved around, like, we thought this was a whole thing about tanking and whether they were asked to throw games. The coach, and then all of a sudden drops out of the sky the Brady tampering thing, which honestly I had no idea that was out there. Did you? Did you guys know that was even being discussed?
Not until recent.
Like, we were hating to hear about the Dolphins, but it wasn't about the tanking.
The Flores thing was the big thing.
Yeah, but I do think the Dolphins. You like when teams screw up, right? You like when the plan doesn't come together, especially if the team is in your conference. And so this is good for the Titans, just relative. If somebody is derailed on their plan, because I thought that the Dolphins were doing a pretty good job. They sunk to the bottom, right? Whether you want to use tanking or strategic rebuild, whatever, they were trying to accumulate as many draft picks as they could. I thought the plan was starting to come together okay.
The past 2 drafts, it's
not
the
bad.
plan has come to fruition.
Yeah, in fact, you could argue they were a little bit ahead of schedule with Brian Flores, and then all of a sudden they make the move and replace him. And so much does revolve around Tua. Can he take the next step? And now that you give him Tyreek Hill, there's really no excuses. So I don't know if it affects them this year. But DMase, I do wonder if this is like a cloud. Does this distract their play at all? I don't know. Like the fact that the owner's suspended, does that really affect the day-to-day operations of a team?
No, not really.
It shouldn't, right?
I mean,
the suspension of the owner, I think, was more so a statement from the NFL to say we're taking this seriously, rather than the day-to-day operations.
And I think everybody laughed when they did that with the
it
owner.
is
It's like,
all
listen,
a PR
the
stunt.
owner's not. I mean, he can watch from his mansion somewhere with his friends and family, and still have the ability to, get upset or anything else. So him actually being in the stadium, not being there doesn't really affect what they do on the field. I mean, I've never heard of a player like, man, the owner's here today. Look at him, he's up there.
Better shape up.
Exactly. Or the head coach. I've never heard, that talked about before games. So,
like George Steinbrenner is like the one guy that used to actually call the dugout, and he did get suspended, for years. So that was
so when you have someone that's that integral in the day-to-day, play-to-play, sort of operations, it's different.
Like, would Jerry Jones fall into that category? I don't know.
I
if
think
he's
Jerry
ever,
sort of,
at
least
game
in
or anything.
past years, he would have fell into that Steinbrenner category of a guy. As soon as the game's over, he comes downstairs and gives his interview on what he liked, what he disliked. So that was a person that was more day-to-day, play-to-play. He was a part of that. Well, the Dolphins owner, to my knowledge, he's not that type of owner. So him not being
Jerry
there,
Jones.
exactly, him not being there is not a big thing.
I wouldn't think so.
But I mean, how does this ultimately affect the Titans? It's because now you don't have to worry about a team being above you as far as first round picks. So how can the Titans, do they move up a spot? Does everybody move up a spot?
Yeah, there's one
because,
less pick.
Yeah, because the Dolphins don't have a first-round pick. The Dolphins, the Titans are sort of solidified at the quarterback position, at least this year and next year, because Ryan's still under contract. We can't say that about Miami. So now, is that a team that the Titans don't necessarily have to worry about possibly fighting to get a playoff berth moving forward? Because if they're not sold on their quarterback, like you said, Carolyn, they can't then go get a quarterback in the first round. They got to wait to get their potential franchise quarterback, which not many come after the first two rounds, really. I know there have been, but historically those franchise quarterbacks come in the first round. So moving forward, it helps the Titans, but it helps everybody else too. But then it also sets a precedent of you can't tamper anymore, because now we've sort of laid down a hammer.
Well, and I think
so all these little things you were doing, like, maybe showing up at a place a player was, ironically.
What a coincidence.
Oh, my goodness.
I
We're
had
here
no
together.
Idea.
Oh, my goodness.
Matthew Stafford, I can't believe you were here. Me and the McVay family were just taking a Cabo trip. I can't believe we're at the same resort.
So I think it makes that part a little bit more. When you want to go down that route, you got to think now. And not to say that the Titans have done that or will do that, but just in case there's a player out there that will potentially be a free agent, we're not going down this road. We're going to wait till he's actually a free agent to talk to him.
And, you bring up the Dolphins in the future with the quarterback position. That's why I think this is so interesting that it's happening to the Dolphins, because they're in a different position. You don't want to lose your first-round pick. That's how you set up your franchise for success. But let's say if this happened to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're set at the quarterback position. They can find depth pieces in the second or third round. Or the Cincinnati Bengals, they can find depth at the second or third round. But the Dolphins have such a question mark at quarterback. In this incoming draft class, there's some really solid quarterbacks in there. Look at Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young. So I think that this affects the Dolphins differently and impacts them a little bit more than it would maybe another team that has a more solid, starting quarterback. But I also think it's interesting because if Bill Belichick never texted Brian Flores, would we know about any of this?
Nope.
This was a slip up of Bill Belichick, a slip of the thumb, and now the Dolphins are without a first-round pick.
He fat-fingered the wrong name.
Yeah, Boomer Belichick texts the wrong person.
Unbelievable. I still, though, I sympathize with Brian Flores because he's sitting there, and the story is all about the tampering. It's Brady. It's more of a sexy story, right, if it's about Brady. When really he was sitting there going, they asked me to – they offered me money to lose games, and that is not in the findings here. And they sort of – he talked about it, Goodell did, but they basically said, hey, the owner was joking, and that's the furthest that it went. Well, how do you know if the owner's joking? Like, if your boss, the actual owner of the team, says that, are you supposed to know he's joking? Like, he thought it was serious enough that he wrote a letter and expressed his concerns.
Right after it happened.
Right after it happened. So they downplayed that, and I can see why Brian Flores is really upset that this is the story and not his story.
Well, I think what probably happened is, okay, this is a huge story. And as we're investigating this, something else pops up that's not really a big story, but we're going to make it bigger than this story because this story, the potential tanking can affect how people perceive the NFL from a betting standpoint. Like, this ain't legit anymore. Like, if I'm a person that bets, I'm thinking like, should I really bet on this game? Because, we got owners telling people to tank.
And we talk about that in the NBA all the time about certain refs that are reffing certain games where you might swing one way or another because this ref is known for, swinging one way or another. If the NFL starts to have this reputation of owners paying head coaches to lose games in order to tank, then you are no better than the NBA.
Exactly.
We talked so much this week about protecting the shield with the Deshaun Watson situation, but if you allow this to go on, you are not protecting the shield and the reputation of the NFL. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on that. But the Titans don't have to worry about the Dolphins quarterback, at least in the near future. But what quarterbacks do they have to worry about in the 2022 season? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It's Chase, Willy, and DMase on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Here they come, turn 4, final lap.
Hey, it's Chase McCabe. Be sure to join me tonight at 6 o'clock for a special Chasing Checkers previewing the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. It's all presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Hey football fans, Patrick Mahomes here, and I'm here to tell you that with NFL Sunday Ticket only on DirecTV, you can watch your favorite team no matter where you live. Because NFL Sunday Ticket gives you every live out-of-market game every Sunday afternoon. So switch to DirecTV and learn how to get the 2022 NFL Sunday Ticket season included at no extra cost. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
With choice package and above, 24-month agreement required. Call for details.
Celebrate back to school season with Hiller. This month only, get free backyard upgrades when you replace essential home systems like a free Traeger grill with a new whole home generator or a free Yeti cooler with a new tankless water heater. And Hiller's keeping you cool for back to school with zero interest financing for up to 12 months on select new HVAC systems. Visit happyhiller.com. Happy you'll be, or the service is free.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Hey, what's up? It's Chase McCabe here to tell you about my drink of the summertime. You know it, Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. Screwball is the first and most awarded peanut butter whiskey in the world, and it's an original, just like me, the suit. I take Screwball as a shot, but it's great on the rocks in an old-fashioned, an espresso martini, and many other recipes. So next time you're out and about, ask for Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2022 Screwball Spirits, LLC, San Diego, California. Whiskey with natural flavors, 35% alcohol by volume.
It's a fact. Guys hate going to the doctor. But when it comes to erectile dysfunction and low testosterone issues, men from all over Middle Tennessee have been thrilled seeing Dr. Alderson and their providers at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Men all the way up to 95 years old have jump-started their sex drive and energy levels. Lots of men suffer with ED for years, but now they're able to enjoy sex again. Tom from Nashville said, "The Tennessee Men's Clinic has changed my life. I have been able to be intimate with my wife for the first time in 5 years. She thought this problem was because of her, but the pills never worked for me. I had given up until I went to the clinic and realized there were more options for erectile dysfunction. Now I'm happy and my wife is happy. A visit for only $99, and that includes all testing, including a PSA and testosterone test. Give the guys at the clinic a call at 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090. Or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
Visit our website to learn more, including side effects, treatments, extra, results vary.
Hey, Nashville, what's the best part of hockey? That's rhetorical. We all know the answer. It's the 3-on-3 overtime, the speed, the skill, the tic-tac-toe passing. It is electric. Well, now there is a new, totally 3-on-3 ice hockey league called 3 Ice, coming to the Music City on August 6th. They're playing at Bridgestone Arena, and tickets are available now at 3ice.com. 6 teams touring across 9 cities, playing a bracket-style tournament at each stop. It's overtime all the time. Hair on fire hockey. Log on to 3ice.com for tickets now.
We want to hear from you.
Thanks for taking the call.
Join the conversation. Call or text at 615-737-1025. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This is Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Chase, Willy, and DMase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. Hey, we are your racing station. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game is Nashville's home for NASCAR. Tune in this Sunday at 1 o'clock for the Firekeepers Casino 400. Also join Chase McCabe every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. for Chase and Checkers as he talks to the drivers and gets you set for race weekend. NASCAR on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game is presented by the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. Now, coming up next, I want to break down how Mike Sando views the Titans' quarterback competition this season. But at the break, we had an interesting discussion because we were talking about how the NFL is stripping Miami of their 2023 first-round pick, their 2024 third-round pick, suspending the owner, fining the owner for tampering with Tom Brady and Sean Payton. But there's a completely separate side of this situation, and that was the intentional tanking. You know, go back a few months with the Brian Flores investigation of, you know, the offering $100,000 per loss, intentionally tanking. And Willy brought up a very fair point. And what is the difference between rebuilding and tanking? Because they both have very similar end goals of you want to make your team better. And the process looks the same. It's you get worse to eventually get better. But rebuilding is something that's embraced and it's been done by probably every single team before. And it's something that's a very natural and regular part of sports in general, not just football, but sports.
Because it's an important point, because in the findings of the league, when they addressed this whole thing about the $100,000 for a loss, the league found that the Dolphins did not, quote, intentionally lose games. They played hard. They competed hard to win every game, including at the end of the season when they beat Cincinnati and New England. Now, they did. They beat the Patriots in New England late in the season with Fitzmagic, I guess, was the guy that was doing it. I remember that game. On a number of occasions, though, they did find that Ross expressed his belief that the Dolphins' position in the upcoming draft should take priority over the win-loss record. So where do you draw the line of when it's just rebuilding and it's smart, like the higher you pick, the better players you're going to get? And where is it tanking? Because tanking has that negative connotation, although tanking has worked for a lot of teams in a lot of different sports when you get down to it. So where does it become something that is just flat out wrong? Like when you're paying, obviously if he did offer to pay the coach to lose, that's where it crosses the line for sure. But it is a kind of a gray area, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a gray area because it's almost like they look the same, but they're not the same. You know,
same sentence but different fonts.
Absolutely, it's like, do you have a, I'm thinking of apples, crisp apple, or what is the other apple? A Fiji apple, or however.
Sure.
Yeah.
Granny Smith.
Yeah, Granny
those all
Smith.
sound like apples.
They both look like apples. They both are apples, but you take a bite, they taste totally different. But on the outside, they both look the same because they're both apples.
It's all about the framing.
Absolutely. So in this situation, it's, yes, we want to rebuild in a sense, but there's been some allegations of tanking. I gave y'all an example, when we first got here to Nashville, 97, 98. Those were 8-8 seasons. And
3 in a row, right?
3 in a row. And I'm not saying that Bud Adams and Jeff ever did this, because they never did. We all went out there. We were all on a mission. This is just like a hypothetical to kind of go along with what Miami went through. Just say if in our 8-8 seasons after the first one, Bud was like, hey, listen, we're an 8-8 team. You know, we're good, but not good enough to contend for a playoff spot. But we're not bad enough to get the first pick or two in the draft. So, you know, Steve McNair has been dealing with a few injuries. You know, I mean, he's our franchise quarterback. I want to sit him down for cautions these next 3 games. Eddie George's been dealing with the knee or toe, and, you know, he's our franchise guy. You know what? Jeff, sit him down for 3 games because we're talking about long-term. We want to make sure we have those guys long-term. Sit him down, rest him, and we'll deal with whatever next year. Bruce Matthews, Brad Hopkins, they've been dealing with some stuff. Let's sit them down too. So what you've done is, in your mind as an owner, this is the only way you can get around the tanking thing. You know you want to move up in the draft, but if these guys play, you're not good enough to move up in the draft. You're not bad enough to move up in the draft.
Right.
So if I sit these guys, in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, this is the only way I can tank without tanking, you know, because if Adams goes to Jeff and say, do this, knowing Jeff, he's like, no, I'm not. Same thing with Flores and Ross. Ross said, do this. Flores said, hell no, I'm not. I owe it to my guys. I owe it to this organization. I owe it to my fan base to try to win every football game. And what happened in the end? Flores gets fired. For what? We don't know. I mean, there's been speculation. Exactly. But he's exceeded expectations, and then you end up firing him.
But that wasn't the intention.
Absolutely.
Was to win games.
The intention were to lose them, not win them. So what if that would have went down with Jeff Fisher and Bud Adams? You know, so it's a delicate balance because, like you said, Caroline, they both look the same, but they're not the same.
I think the biggest difference, at least in
and
the
that's
Miami
why for the
example,
NFL is hard to prove.
It is.
Very hard to prove.
But I think the Miami example makes it so easy to define what is wrongdoing and what isn't, is the obvious bribery of losing games. Hey, I will reward you for losing games. I mean, that's tanking, that's bribery, that is an unfair exchange for losses. Whereas I look at rebuilding and it's maybe a little bit more strategic, like, hey, we're going to trade our 3 best players because we want to accumulate picks, we want to go in a different direction, whatever it might be. The end goal is the same.
I liken it
But it's a different process.
Exactly.
But
I
those
liken
are
it
easy
to
examples.
this.
Like if you're offering $100,000 per loss, that's easy to say, okay, that's foul play.
Exactly. So I liken it to this. Everybody knows if you go into an airport and you say a specific word, I don't care if you're playing. Everybody's ears goes up. Police are coming. You are being taken to the back, regardless of what you meant, because you knew exactly if I say this word, what can happen. Same thing with Ross. You know good and well. If you go to your head coach and say, I give you $100,000 for every loss, you know exactly what you're doing. You are
He can't do
essentially
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you know the minute whether
You don't
I
joke
think
about
you're
that.
playing or not, as a head coach, it's my responsibility then to take it further because I don't ever want it to come back on me and say the owner asked you to, lose games for $100,000, but you never told anybody. You see what I'm saying? So you know what words not to say and what words to say.
No question. There's a language that you speak.
Exactly.
When you are tanking, that you say you do it in a way that gets around the flat out, hey, we are losing this game. I'll pay you if we lose this game. There's ways to do it and there's ways not to do it. And so to me, he crossed the line there. If there was any, now they kind of get fuzzy.
Absolutely crossed the line.
They can't pin down that he actually used those words, but they said there are differing recollections about the wording, timing, and content.
How's he supposed to take it?
He's
I'm
the
only
owner.
joking if you say no.
Exactly.
But if you say yes,
Absolutely.
then
Joke
I'm
about
serious. Let's go to your phones. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jim in Mount Juliet is up next.
Hey guys, I want to look at a little bit of a different angle. If someone is putting a product, a performance out on the field or on stage or wherever, the buyer, whether it be a network or an individual, is expecting to see a full performance, a best performance put forward. If someone's going to tank, are you going to be refunding some money to the ticket owners and to CBS and to Fox?
I mean, I struggle with this because if you're bad unintentionally, do you owe money back to the season ticket holders? I look at it more so from a betting perspective. And thank you for your call, Jim. I look at it more so from a betting perspective that once you start to interfere with Vegas and someone who puts money on a game, that's when there's foul play at hand. It's up to the season ticket holders or the ticket holders or whoever goes to the game or the networks that own the games. The networks are going to make money off the games no matter if they're good or bad. The people who go to the games or have season tickets know what they're signing up for. I don't think that there's any sort of reciprocity that's necessary here whenever you're tanking or rebuilding or whatever words you want to use.
And tanking has been a sound strategy as the best way to win.
But they don't call it
doesn't always
tanking.
work.
It's always rebuilding. It's always never tank. You can't say tanking.
How you do it is important.
We're rebuilding. You know, we're protecting our investments. We're sitting guys that are injured for the long term.
And you hope that you can sell that to your fans.
Exactly.
And say, this is only temporary. Like the Washington Nationals right now, they're rebuilding in a big way. They just traded their whole team. They beat the Mets last night, too. What the heck is going on with that? But no Juan Soto, no Josh Bell. The names in that lineup last night, that's a rebuilding team. They got a long way to go, but they hope that's the quickest way back to the top.
That's the strategy.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on that. But coming up next, Mike Sando polled GMs and coaches and executives across the league and ranked each quarterback in certain tiers. So who do the Titans play and what tier do they fall in? We'll get into that coming up next. Chase, Willy, and DMase, Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It's 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Hey, Preds fans.
Sliding across to make the save is Sarah.
You can now hear Nashville's best sports talk.
The back-hander, he scores!
And every Predators game on 106.3 FM.
Oh, that was a thing of beauty.
From downtown Nashville to Rutherford and Williamson counties.
Duchesne with the overtime winner.
Catch all the action on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Hey folks, Joe Rexroth here, inviting you to start the second half of the baseball season the right way. Turn K's into cash, turn big hits into big wins with FanDuel Sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just sign up using promo code Joe102, place your first bet. FanDuel will give you up to $1,000 back in free bets if you don't win. FanDuel is the #1 sportsbook in America for many reasons. Great promotions every day, safe and secure. You get paid fast. It's easy to use. And on the baseball front, my goodness, that Soto trade. Going to be really interesting to see what that makes of the Padres moving forward. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Sign up using promo code Joe102. Get started with your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site. Credit expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 800-889-9789.
Hi guys, it's Andrew. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, today, Wednesday, August 3rd, we're running an unprecedented one-day special you won't want to miss out on. Hillside Medical Clinic uses the most powerful form of wave therapy. This is a technology clinically shown to repair blood vessels and improve blood flow. We can now get rid of your erectile dysfunction without any pills. If you're ready to transform your love life, grab your phone. Today is your day. Call us now and you'll qualify for the assessment and ultrasound totally free. Also, a gift that can produce powerful results in the bedroom in minutes. You're going to love that, guys. And today only, we're offering 5 tune-up treatments to our patients free. This is our most lucrative offer ever, worth $1,000. But call today, Wednesday, and qualify totally free. 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your love life back. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now to qualify. This offer ends today. 615-576-5000.
The Nashville Sheriff is hiring correctional officers. Earn $52,500 after paid training and probation. Positions are available immediately. You must be 21 and over with a high school diploma or GED. Come, join our family. That's $52,500 with great benefits. Apply now at sheriff.nashville.gov/apply or call 615-862-8170. Earn $52,500. Stop searching. Apply now. The Nashville Sheriff.
The train is right on time. Here comes the American Band, Grand Funk Railroad. This Friday night at Schermerhorn Symphony Center. Featuring Don Brewer, Mel Shocker, Bruce Kulick, Max Carl, and Tim Cashin. Tickets on sale now at NashvilleSymphony.org. Grand Funk Railroad, live.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN.
Welcome into Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Somebody company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming.
Get the extra point, no problem.
And the Nashville Predators.
Scores!
Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey, Nashville, this is Dan Lebitard. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Chase, Willy, and DMase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe today. So Mike Sando a couple weeks ago polled GMs, coaches, executives in the NFL and asked them to rank each quarterback in the NFL in terms of tiers. Tier 1, of course, is your elite quarterbacks, your Aaron Rodgers, your Patrick Mahomes, your Joe Burrow, so on and so forth. Tier 2, guys that are good but maybe not great, maybe not elite, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, so on and so forth. Ryan Tannehill landed in that third tier, and we can deliberate on that all day long, which quarterback deserves to be where. But that's not what I want to focus on here. Because Mike Sando also released an article ranking the difficulty of schedule based on opposing quarterback tiers. So, of course, I looked first to see where the Tennessee Titans rank. So, according to this tier system, and according to the way that Mike Sando did all the math, the Tennessee Titans have the second most difficult schedule in the NFL when it comes to quarterback tiers. It says the Titans have 10 games against quarterbacks in the top two tiers, tied for the second most in the league. So the Tennessee Titans have a cumulative 2.47 quarterback tier ranking, only second to the Kansas City Chiefs with a 2.28 ranking. But I look at, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, all tier 1 quarterbacks that the Titans will face this season. And then you add in Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, and the second tier. Matt Ryan's in the second tier as well. We can get into that later. But that's not new to any of us, that the AFC just got significantly more difficult with the quarterback prowess in the AFC. I don't think it's new to any of us looking at the Titans' schedule for the 2022 season that they were going to face some really difficult quarterbacks. But I compare this list to the 2021 season because I looked at the schedule last season and I looked at the Bills game and the Chiefs game as incredibly daunting opponents. But is it almost a good thing that the Titans are facing 5 different tier 1 quarterbacks? Because what we saw last year, it seemed like the Titans performed their best against some of the best competition. I mean, they beat Patrick Mahomes last year, a tier 1 quarterback in their schedule this year. Beat Josh Allen last year, a tier 1 quarterback in their schedule this year. Of course, it was by, a game of inches, but a win's a win. I mean, take out Tannehill's 3 interceptions. You probably feel pretty good about beating Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. I know that's not how that works, but take that into consideration as well. So I do wonder, is this a positive thing if you look at it through the lens of the Tennessee Titans always perform better against good competition?
Well, if you look at last year and if nothing truly changed, if everything sort of stayed status quo, then it possibly could be a good thing. But here's why it's not a good thing. Josh Allen, their defense got much better. And they finally found them a number 2 receiver. Justin Herbert, defense got much better. And they re-signed their top receiver. Joe Burrow, their offensive line got significantly better, and they've added more pieces on defense. Dak Prescott, he has weapons on the outside. I think a few guys got injured, so that's yet still to be determined. But they got better on defense as well. Derek Carr got better on offense. He has him a legitimate weapon on the outside, and they got better on defense.
Oh, I think the Raiders are one of the more underrated teams in the NFL.
So when you look at these, even Jalen Hurts, he got playmakers around him. Their running game will be better, and their defense got better. So it's not just, okay, these are the quarterbacks that the Titans face, because I think the Titans defense is going to I would put them up against the way they played last year and the way we believe their defense will be this year. I put them up against any quarterback out there because I think they will, get the job done. With that front seven, I think they will be okay. But it's the flip side. It's those teams have gotten better on defense, and the Titans still have questions on offense.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. But from a standpoint of if we're just comparing quarterbacks, I think it doesn't matter to the Titans because their defense is a top 5 defense.
Herm Edwards used to put it this way when he would join us. He would say those tier 1 guys, those top guys back at the time he was doing this, it was still Peyton Manning, it was Brady, it was Breeze.
It's still Brady. No,
it's still Brady. He said those guys are 14 points on the board. Like most weeks, you just put 14. They're worth that many. So I don't think it's a good thing. I agree with you, Derek, on everything you said in terms of this is going to put more pressure on the Titans offense because you could play a good defensive game against a tier 1 quarterback like Aaron Rodgers or, pick one. The Titans play what would you say, Caroline, 5 games
tier
against
1
tier 1. You could play well defensively and still give up 21, 24 points so that you've got to come up with the points to beat those guys. That's what makes the quarterback play so tough. I think this is a very significant thing. The degree of difficulty that the Titans are playing relative to the rest of the league. So the second most difficult. We all saw that schedule, and our eyeballs told us, oh, man, look at that schedule. They play a lot of good quarterbacks. So this just further solidifies that. But here's the biggest part to me. The Colts play the 24th toughest. They only play 2 games against tier 1 quarterbacks, Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. So you would think, like usually in your division, most of the games are the same, common opponents, but that extra game and the first place schedule versus the second place schedule does change the draw a little bit more than it used to. It used to be only 2 games that were not common opponents. Now it's 3. And so that's made a big difference. 2 versus 24 in the degree of difficulty, that is grounds alone to maybe predict the Colts to be the favorite in the division.
Well, in this league, and I think I heard you say it yesterday, Carolyn, yes, it looks like you look at it and say, well, this team has the hardest schedule, this team has the easiest schedule. But the NFL is week to week. Just because, they might have played bad week 5 doesn't mean you go up against them in week 7 that they're going to play bad again.
And the Titans lost to the Jets, the
exactly.
Texans, and beat the
so
Bills
this
and
is
the
a
Chiefs.
week-to-week
that did happen.
league, and I think every NFL game is hard. Some are harder than others, but every NFL game is hard because you never know what you're going to get on that particular Sunday. Willie, you said this the other day. Well, when the Titans play the Giants first game of the week, that's going to be a hard game. You know why? Because the Giants don't know that they're a bad team yet.
Right. And
okay, if they turn out to be a bad team, they don't know they're a bad team yet.
But still, over 17 games, you cannot tell me it's not a big advantage for the Colts. They play 2 tier 1s and 3 tier 2s. Now, of course, we're assuming
But
that
when
these
you get to
tiers
the
are
end of the
accurate.
season and those are division games, those are hard, difficult games to play. We've seen it week in and week out. The Titans go against the Texans. The Texans won 3 games, but the Texans end up either winning a game or Ryan Tannehill got to come down late in the game and score a touchdown.
Every week there's a game that we come in here on Monday and say, how in the world did so-and-so beat so-and-so? Like you said, the Jets last year, that was one of those games. Like, what? And there's one every week in this league, which is why it's really hard to win one of those deals where just pick the winner. Pick the one team you're sure is going to win.
Parlays are tough in the NFL.
Right. You don't win very often, right? But it still is an advantage. Strength of schedule does matter, And I think the Colts have a pretty distinct advantage in strength of schedule.
It only matters in college football. That's the only strength of schedule.
Like,
only
obviously,
matters in
the college football playoff.
Exactly.
Well, and obviously, it's a metric on that, right? It could be the difference in you making it or not making it. To say the NCAA basketball tournament, everything is revolving around strength of schedule. Otherwise, you would play a weak schedule, but they have to do that. But I do think, even though it can change, this is a huge advantage for the Colts right here.
Oh, of course. I mean, I would rather play
Mitchell
Mills
Trubisky
than to play Aaron Rodgers, obviously.
Yeah, the Titans don't play the Steelers, right? We're putting Mitch Trubisky as the starter right now. He may not end up. It could be Mason Rudolph. Maybe they go with the rookie at some point.
Whether it's Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, his name just escaped me for a second, or Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
I don't think any of those quarterbacks scare you.
The Colts get to play those guys, and the Titans have to play Joe Burrow and the Bengals. That's a difference.
But if the Colts don't show up, that can be a loss. Is it in Pittsburgh
it doesn't mean
or
they're
is it
going
in
to lose the
Indianapolis?
game. It just makes it's just harder. It's going to be tougher for the Titans, which hopefully they're good enough to overcome that.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, and DMase brings up a good point about it's not just about the quarterback, it's about the team around them as well. But using that logic, what are some of the quarterbacks on the Titans schedule this season that may be overinflated using that logic in these quarterback tiers? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It's Chase, Willy, and DMase. And hey, 102.5-106.3 The Game is bringing you Nashville's best coverage of Titans training camp, presented by USA Hemp Store and Parman Energy, your one-stop petroleum solution.
At some point, it's a combination of who did you play and what does your skill set look like.
Get the best analysis of the big stories in the sports world with ESPN's Jason Fitz.
If you reach for a quarterback in the draft because you need one, you're going to set your franchise back 5 years.
Join Fitzy every Wednesday at 4:30. Presented by Blood Assurance. Jason Fitz.
I am 5'9.5"
on ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
From the Fox 17 News Code Red Weather Center.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobis. Today, highs in the middle 90s. And then you factor in the humidity will feel close to 100 during the afternoon. The possibility of a few isolated showers and storms. Most of us stay dry throughout today.
Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Tennessee has never been a stranger to progress. And with all the changes going on, people want an affordable way to protect their families, which is why so many Tennesseans trust us. At Farm Bureau Health Plans, helping people find peace of mind has never gone out of style. Just click fbhp.com, call us, or visit one of our many offices. Farm Bureau Health Plans, protecting Tennesseans since 1947.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try Ziprecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. Ziprecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required. Refund available for 60 days after purchase.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/joy. You'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. Results are guaranteed or your money back. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, forhims.com/joy. That's forhims.com/joy for your free online visit. forhims.com/JOY.
Jared Stillman.
This is a team that the entire city is losing their minds over.
Caroline Fenton.
It's one of the youngest teams in the league. They don't have a single player over the age of 30.
Stillman and Company. Afternoons from 2 to 6.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
I'm ready to step this up a notch.
You're listening to Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
You are listening to Chase, Willy, and DMase on 102.5, 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe today. We're breaking down Mike Sando's quarterback rankings, which was kind of reinvented to rank the most difficult schedules based off of these quarterback tiers. The Tennessee Titans currently sitting with the second most difficult schedule in the NFL, only using this metric of quarterback tiers. They played 5 Tier 1 quarterbacks: Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow. And I made the point that, hey, they beat Patrick Mahomes last year. They beat Josh Allen last year. They beat Russell Wilson, who's a Tier 2 quarterback on this list last year. Different team, I understand. And DMase brought up a fair point that, yeah, I mean, the Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills got better on defense. These teams get better in the offseason. Derek Carr, who's listed as a Tier 2 quarterback on this list, the Raiders got better in the offseason. But I also, using that same logic, who are some of these quarterbacks in this list that might be overinflated based off of what happened in the offseason? Patrick Mahomes still is a Tier 1 quarterback. He's an elite quarterback. But how good can the Chiefs be without Tyreek Hill? The Chiefs' offensive line was very shaky to begin the season last year. I'm very grateful that the Titans played the Chiefs when they did, before the Chiefs kind of figured everything out.
Yeah,
and were
they
able
caught
to
the
compete
Chiefs
for
at
the
a good
AFC
time.
championship.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's another key
and
part
they
in this
caught
as
them on
well.
a week where the Titans actually had Julio Jones and A.J. Brown in there. That was like a week where, like, hey, this is all coming together
Things
here.
fell into place. So I don't think that you lose Tyreek Hill and get better. So while Patrick Mahomes still is a Tier 1 quarterback, is their job beating the Chiefs, I mean, even easier this year? And look at Russell Wilson, listed as a Tier 2 quarterback, kind of that upper Tier 2. He was a Tier 1 quarterback a couple of years ago. But you don't lose DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and an offense that you've been familiar with almost your entire career, if not your entire career, and get better. Because now Russell Wilson is dealing with fewer weapons on offense, dealing with a first-year head coach in Nathaniel Hackett that didn't call plays in Green Bay. We don't know what the Nathaniel Hackett tenure in Denver will look like. So you look at Russell Wilson, albeit what his resume and his skill is a Tier 2 quarterback, this season, is he really going to be able to execute like a Tier 2 quarterback?
Well, you're hitting on some variables, right? And that's where DMase
All
was going.
variables, yeah.
A lot of good variables, and that's why he's trying to talk me off the ledge a little bit, because I see this as a big advantage for the Colts. But like Derek was saying, when you play a team is very important, right? That's one big variable. And new players, new systems, new coaches, that can affect whether a guy is playing Tier 1 or Tier 2 when he's actually a Tier 3. All of these things can make it look a lot less menacing on the actual week. That's why it's such a terrible game to play when you look at the schedule and say, oh, that's a win, that's a loss. It's comical because it always turns out to be completely different on the week of that game. And I don't think it's any different here with these quarterbacks. But one thing we did pin down, DMase, during the break, where I'm still quite worried. I sound like Jared. I'm worried. He gives you that every day, doesn't he?
Talking off of a ledge is something that I've become pretty good at.
Yes, you're getting good experience daily with that. But we did the comparison. In the last segment, we said Titans play Burrow, and Pittsburgh is the opponent for Indy. So pick the guy, Trubisky, let's say. Titans get Aaron Rodgers. The Colts get Kirk Cousins. Pretty big difference. And then the third one was what? The third Tier 1?
When the Titans get, let's see.
The Titans get Josh Allen, and the Colts get Mac Jones.
Right.
Now, that's 3 games. To me, that's the difference. Everything else, I am on Derek's side in, okay, it looks worse than it actually is, but for those 3 games, I think you could make the argument that could be the difference in winning the division, losing the division for the Colts. That's a big edge. Those 3 games in particular. Doesn't mean you're going to lose. Like you just said, the Titans found ways to win games against elite teams. That's how they earned the number 1 seed last year, because they had a couple bad losses, right?
They lost games they weren't supposed to lose, and they won games they were not supposed to win.
Did anybody think they were going to beat the Rams on that Sunday night game right after Derrick Henry got hurt? No. They have a knack for being able to find ways to win, which is probably their best attribute. But this is still a big disadvantage, I'd say.
Okay. Let's just take the 2 quarterbacks that y'all mentioned, because we're going not Trubisky. Let's take Trubisky out. So we're going from the top of the list, which is Aaron Rodgers, to possibly sort of, let's say, not necessarily the bottom, but close to it, Kirk Cousins. Mm-hmm. Okay?
The quintessential tier 3.
Exactly. That is.
Cousins.
So we're
Wherever
going
the middle
one.
Is,
exactly.
He's the middle. Yeah.
He's the middle.
Yeah.
So
he begins the middle. Kirk Cousins.
So this is why I think, Titans playing Aaron Rodgers is a little bit overemphasized in a sense, and Kirk Cousins is sort of minimized. Kirk Cousins should be a little bit higher, honestly, from this standpoint. Aaron Rodgers is working with a whole new staff, basically. He's working with a bunch of young guys. He lost his best weapon in Devontae Adams. Now he has Lazard and Scantling. They have potential, and we've seen Aaron Rodgers take a young guy and make him into an all-pro, Devontae Adams. But Devontae had that skill in him anyway. He showed it in college with Derek Carr, who's his quarterback now. So he has Scantling and Lazard, who he has to, these have to be his number 1 guys. Would you rather go against that or Kirk Cousins, who he put up numbers now?
Yeah.
We may not I love him because he's a Michigan State guy, but he is a little bit like, you may get a great game and then you may get just a subpar game.
He's got holes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But look who he's throwing to.
Exactly. That's the
Justin
key.
Jefferson, Adam Thielen. We're talking about 2 guys that were all pros or Pro Bowlers. Then he has Dalvin Cook coming back, 1,000-yard rusher. So if you just look at it from that standpoint, because Kirk Cousins is not garbage. He's a really good quarterback, but he's not a top-tier quarterback. Exactly. Who would you rather go against?
That's a good point.
But also to that point, because I'm with you, is that when you have weapons, that makes you a whole heck of a lot of better quarterback.
Exactly.
But Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So how much of it is he can make any receiver look like a Pro Bowler? Mm-hmm. And Kirk Cousins might struggle, so he won't be able to take advantage of the Adam Thielens and the Justin Jeffersons. Because I think that all comes into play as well.
But when do you play him too?
That's another thing.
When you play him,
if you play Green Bay early, maybe they don't have that cohesiveness that they need. You play Minnesota early, they've already got it. They've already built it. So it's not necessarily who you're going against, it's when do you go against, when do you play them? Because if I play Joe Burrow last year or his rookie year at the beginning of the season where everybody's fresh, I'm getting a different Joe Burrow at the beginning of the season that we saw at the end of the season. So I would rather play him early on than later in the year.
Well, 2 years ago,
exactly,
the Titans lost to Joe Burrow in that game where they kind of screwed it up, but Burrow played really well. And then, of course, Burrow got hurt. So everybody who played the Bengals after that got to play. Who was the guy they put in there? I can't even remember.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get back into that. But first, we will chat with Jonathan Hutton of Outkick 360, breaking down his thoughts and what he's seen at Titans training camp. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It's Chase, Willy, and DMase on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Heads up. 106.3 FM is a new way to hear 102.5 The Game from downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and on I-24 to Murfreesboro.
Make sure you have that preset on your radio dial.
We're making it even easier to listen to Nashville's best sports talk.
Because we have a great show planned for you today.
Tune in to 106.3.
That's what makes this team better.
And hear the difference.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Hey, homeowners and home buyers, listen up. Loan Pronto has 30-year fixed rates with APRs in the 4s and 15-year loans with APRs that start with 3. Hey, it's Willy Donick. Don't be confused by the media's hype about interest rates. At Loan Pronto, their rates have plummeted recently, and they're currently refinancing homeowners who locked in a 5 or 6% rate. So if you've got a rate over 5%, or if your lender has you pre-approved or locked in at anything 5% or higher, you need to call Loan Pronto now. Not all lender rates are created equal. Loan Pronto's rates are down big time, and you need to take advantage, whether you are buying, refinancing, getting cash out, or even if you just closed a few weeks ago. Call Loan Pronto today, and you could save tens of thousands of dollars. Loan Pronto can help keep more money in your pocket. Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval. Are you sick and tired of constant pain in your knees, hips, or back? Especially this time of the year. You need to be moving pain-free, right? Hey, Willy Donick here for the team at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is helping people every day, giving them lasting pain relief using the latest advances in regenerative medicine. The science is simple. They concentrate your own body's healing agents and apply them to your aching joints, restoring and repairing the damaged tissue. No drugs, no steroids, no surgery. The old remedies for pain are not the only remedies. You need to learn more about how regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics can change your life. Make this the last summer you suffer from chronic pain. They've got clinics here and all over America. This is the exciting new, natural way to deal with joint pain. No side effects, no downtime. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway. Now here's Jim Mitchell.
Our fleet vehicle program is a great benefit to all the fleet companies in Nashville. We are able to get their vehicle back on the road a lot quicker than the downtime of most dealers and most general repair shops, simply because we have the transmissions available. We're able to put priority on their vehicles to get them back on the road quickly.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway.
I can go from 0 to 60 way too fast.
Who knew electric vehicle owners were having so much fun?
20 or 30 years ago, I owned a gas sports car, and this car is much quicker.
It's a great, fun car to drive. When you put your foot on the accelerator, it just goes.
They're fun, they're fast, they're efficient.
Visit driveelectrictn.org to learn how you can start having fun driving an electric vehicle.
Sponsored by the East Tennessee Clean Fuels Coalition, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne, broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
We got pass rushers.
Awesome game. Checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Now let's see if we can bring them to life, all right?
Bringing you entertainment and informative sports talk during your workday.
Smart, funny, classy, and I like him a lot.
This is Chase, Willy, and DMase with Chase McCabe, Willy Donick,
Mason, touchdown, Tennessee,
and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, and on the Game Nashville app.
This is a new level of geek you got going on here.
Chase, Willy, and DMase, presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, a York-certified comfort expert company. That is tough to say. Schedule now at springhillac.com. We are live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios and streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Our video streaming is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry, Caroline Fenton, and for Chase McCabe today. We'll go to our 1025 The Game phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jonathan Hutton joins the show. Hutton, you've been out at training camp over the past couple of days. What have been your biggest takeaways from camp so far?
Oh, Caroline, good to hear you. Gentlemen, hello, good afternoon. Biggest takeaways, let's see. I think the offense at times has looked very crisp. Defensively, they have picked it up over the last several practices, though. And that's been with the pads coming on, and I think that's a big advantage when the pads come on for the one-on-one matchup. So I think we're seeing some even play thus far. But let's be honest here, we're not seeing this offense at full strength because we're not seeing Derrick Henry run like Derrick Henry just yet. That won't happen until week 1 against the Giants.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see much of Derrick Henry or Kevin Byard or any of those guys too much in training camp. But to your point about the offense looking crisp and the defense looking better since the pads have come on, I would totally agree with you that the defense has looked better once the pads have come on. But I look at on Monday's practice, I would say the defense overwhelmingly won the day. I look at yesterday's practice, I think the offense won the day. And that's both encouraging and also a little bit concerning about the consistency. I know we're still early on in practice. Kind of your thoughts on the winners of the day from Monday and Tuesday since the pads have come on.
So Roger McCreary stood out to me on Monday. I thought he had a great day. And for me, I'm trying to judge this team based on who stacks practices together more than I am one good day versus having a bad day. So Traylon Burks has stacked practices since he started. Good day after good day, where you don't see him dropping passes. You don't see him dropping out of practice. Let's start there. I should have. That's first and foremost. He looks like a first-round pick. Beyond that, Chigakwankwo and Roger McCreary are the two rookies that stand out past Burks. And on the defensive side, the defensive line this is the first time we're going to see them go into a season full strength based on what they signed and brought in last year. But, again, we're not seeing that dominance because they're not getting after the quarterback. The signs out there say full tilt. It's far from it defensively because they can't go after the quarterback. That's what they're made on, that defensively is getting after the QB like they did last year, especially in the month of December. And that I guess what I'm saying, Caroline, is there are only so many jobs that are really up for grabs right now on this roster. That's a really good thing, considering where they are. You're looking at wide receiver. There's maybe a starting job with Kyle Phillips, who overtook that slot position, it seems, yesterday. I wasn't out there yesterday. And up front of the offensive line, there's 2 jobs up for grabs, although I think we know the front runners there. And defensively, there's not many spots available for starting roles, but there can be for certain sub-packages and positioning on who's going to be active on game day. And then you turn your attention to special teams to determine those answers. I can't believe I'm saying this. I mean, I want to see a preseason matchup. Not all that much, but that's where we're going to determine the back end of the roster, 4 or 5 spots. And then the joint practice work is really where I think we grade this team.
We're talking with Jonathan Hutton at Hutton Outkick. You can follow him on Twitter. And that's where I was going to go, Jonathan, because you hit the nail right on the head in regards to, hey, if you go into camp without having a lot of holes to fill on your starting lineup, that's a good job. That's a good thing. You just want to add depth moving forward. And I think the Titans are sort of at that point once they get these other positions solidified that, okay, next year we should be okay. We're just filling, just adding depth to our team. But we talked earlier about, when will these guys start to separate themselves, or who's going to be the right tackle, who's going to be the guard, who's going to be our receivers come day one. And I said, we're going to start to see some separation in the next couple of weeks here. And more importantly, it will be when they practice Arizona and Tampa and then go into their preseason games, because they're not going against their defense anymore. They're going against another defense. They don't know what's going to happen. It's unpredictable. So they get an opportunity to play a game-like situation, but it's not exactly a game. So eventually, these guys will start separating themselves from one another.
And this is, to your point, this is the point of camp last year where the emphasis turned away from Dylan Radins having really any impact on this team. He was the coaches raved about how coachable he was in OTAs and minicamp, and then they had joint practice work in full pads, and they came back knowing he wasn't physically there. They feel higher on him now in that regard. How much so? Well, to your point, Mace, we're going to find out in the joint practices again, where we fast forward 12 months and see how much he's developed, not just within this system, but how much he's developed in the weight room physically. And I think that's been the point of emphasis for him from the coaching staff and up top. And at wide receiver, it's just consistency and trust. There has not been, I think it's probably Nick Westbrook-Akina, who has the most consistent rapport with Ryan Tannehill, and that's not a good thing. I mean, it's not necessarily a negative, but it is a question that I'm eager to see answered on who steps up and has the most rapport with the new quarterback, because Robert Woods is playing with a new QB now, but he's had a brace on his knee during OTAs and mini camps. He doesn't have that now. That's great. And Traylon Burks, as we know, was barely even seen outside at mini camp or at OTA. So he's been playing well too. I think those are all great things, but now it's time to actually perform when the evaluation cranks up a bit. And as you said, it'll crank up against the live action when they don't know exactly who they're game planning for and what they saw the previous day.
Now, do you believe we will see, because Vrabel has already said, he threw it out there, he said, listen, Derek's not playing in the preseason, and I get it. I wouldn't play him either. But Derek still needs to work against someone other than his defense. So do you expect to see him more during the live scrimmages with Arizona and Tampa than you have seen thus far?
That's a great question. I think we are going to see more starters play against Tampa and against Arizona in these joint practices if the roster maintains the health that they have right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know about Henry. I don't know how they'll treat him. I think he may be the one caveat in that discussion, because we can chat for weeks and months, and we certainly have, about Ryan Tannehill and which version of him we're going to see. To me, that answer will be determined by which version of Derrick Henry he gets behind him. And it's the same way we'll probably end up judging Matt Ryan in Indianapolis, is which version of Jonathan Taylor do they have behind him. Both of these teams are going to be based on the run, and Henry is their bell cow. I don't anticipate them using him any less than they did the first 6 weeks of last season, where he was on a record pace for touches and carries overall. I think they want to make sure they keep him healthy. At the same time, I wouldn't mind seeing that happen, and maybe they give him a couple carries, but I don't know how much that really goes into the season. I don't expect to see him in preseason games. They made a determination last year in December not to play him in the final regular season game going into the postseason. So we've seen a record of this where they're comfortable just turning around and giving the ball first play of the game in live action rather than doing it in a meaningless exhibition.
We're talking to Jonathan Hutton from Outkick. We're talking Titans here. All right, Hut, we were debating this right before you came on. I want to get your take. We were looking at the quarterback tiers that Mike Sando has, and you have these 3 games for the Titans and the Colts, the schedule difference, the difference between winning the division and not, and how it affects the schedule this year. The Titans have games against Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, and Josh Allen. The Colts instead have games against Mitchell Trubisky, Kirk Cousins, and Mac Jones. Big deal? Not a big deal? Is that enough for some people maybe to say that might be the difference in the division, just the strength of schedule for the Titans as opposed to the Colts?
Kirk Cousins and Mac Jones, and who was the quarterback in the middle you mentioned?
Yeah,
Willy,
so the Titans, in the division differences, they get the Bengals, so they get Burrow. The Colts instead get the Steelers, so they get Trubisky.
Okay.
The Titans.
That's a win. That's that's a victory for Indy in comparing the quarterbacks.
Right. The Titans in the NFC North get Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. The Colts get the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. And then the third one is AFC East. The Titans get Josh Allen and the Bills. The Colts get Mac Jones and the Patriots.
Well, the interesting – I mean, it sounds crazy, but the Titans have had I'm looking at this. It's as you well know, too, it's not the head-to-head matchup of the quarterbacks. Josh Allen's also going against what I am looking at to be a number 1 or number 2 defense in the league in the Tennessee Titans. I think they can be that good. They were number 6 in scoring last year. And so I think the quarterbacks against the Colts would also say, we'd rather play the Colts defense than the Titans defense in 2022. So it may even out a bit there. Tannehill, I don't have many reservations about him in the regular season, though. And I don't have reservations about this offense as long as they get back to what they did best, which was more 2 tight end and 12 personnel. And that's where Tannehill thrived in 2020. So while the Titans draw the tougher schedule in regards to those 3 games, and while it could determine the division, we can go back and play the history card, too, against how the Colts have done within their own division, where they can't win a game down in Jacksonville. And for the first time in a long time, the Titans swept the Colts, which never happens. So it ultimately comes down to those matchups. It comes down to Matt Ryan against Ryan Tannehill, to me, more than it does head-to-head matchups against those other quarterbacks.
Okay. Along those lines, final question.
Yep.
Mike Sando has, through his research, his polling of the 50 football people, coaches, executives, Ryan Tannehill in Tier 3 and Matt Ryan barely in Tier 2. Agree or disagree?
I agree with it based on last year's offense. And if I have time, I can clarify dive a little bit into this. I want to know what Tim Kelly means for Ryan Tannehill. If Tim Kelly is running the offense from a passing standpoint, what we saw in Houston, that is great for the Titans offense and Ryan Tannehill because it means he's moving up a tier. Last season, 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. Todd Downing called 228 offensive plays in 12 personnel. 92 of those 228 were pass plays. They only allowed 4 sacks in 12 personnel last year. But they only averaged 69 yards per game out of that package. Compared to 11 personnel, which is what he did in Oakland. So he went to what he knew and what his base was in Oakland. They ran, again, around 230 offensive plays in 2 tight. Last year in 11, they ran 659 plays out of 11 personnel, and 422 of those were pass plays. Really not a shocker. I mean, you've got 3 receivers on the field.
Right.
But they gave up 38 sacks in 11 personnel to 4 in 2 tight. So they have to get back to what they're built to do. And to me, it is loaded up front. You can still produce. I mean, they put up record numbers as a franchise in 2020 with Arthur Smith, who ran a lot more 2 tights. 12 personnel. He ran 350 plays out of 12 personnel in 2020. 145 yards per game came out of 2 tight in 2020. Tannehill gets credit for running that offense too. And, oh, by the way, that was Derrick Henry's 2,000-yard season, and that's where A.J. Brown made his money that he made this offseason. That's where Corey Davis went off and got signed by the Jets. I mean, guys got paid by going 2 tight, and Ryan Tannehill wasn't ridiculed in the offseason like he was this one. Tim Kelly, to me, is a big factor on what tier Tannehill ends up in.
Talking to Jonathan Hutton of Outkick 360, and I think that's a fair point because when you look at the Tannehill's 2021 season, you could point to several different factors. Was it the change in offensive coordinator? Was it the lack of a pass-catching tight end? Was it lack of pass catchers in general, just a revolving door of wide receivers? But I think another aspect of 2021 and a theory that was thrown out as to why Tannehill took a step back was the offensive line. Now, the Titans have addressed bringing in Tim Kelly to assist the offensive coordinator. The Titans have brought in Austin Hooper and drafted Chigakonko, but one area that they didn't address was the offensive line. Hunter, are you concerned about this Titans offensive line? And if with the addition of different pass catchers, is it kind of a non-factor?
I'm concerned if Dylan Radins isn't the guy. He doesn't have to be the all-pro right tackle. He doesn't have to be the Michael Roos who started at right tackle that we eventually see at left, right? He just has to be what we saw against San Francisco, where he made the start. He found out he was starting the day of the game, and he was fine. He wasn't terrible. He certainly wasn't winning the job at left tackle over Taylor Lewan in the offseason either. It was just okay. And he held his own. And I want to see more of that throughout this camp and throughout the preseason, where he's going to have every opportunity to win the job. And he should. I mean, they drafted him high after completely whiffing on Isaiah Wilson, and they can't go back-to-back on this. He's got to be one of the solutions and not part of the problem. And if Radins is that on the right, I feel much more certain that they can get back to what they were doing a season ago, where they don't have to worry about the edges. But I want to clarify this. Lewan wasn't himself last year either. He certainly seems more confident in his overall physical well-being with the knee and everything else. So there are reasons to be skeptical about the O-line, but I am circling the right tackle position more than I am anything else, because I think they can make things work on the inside. As good as Saffold was, and he was so good in the run game, and he was so durable, and a linchpin that helped solidify a group that was banged up in areas, including his own. I think they like some options they have on the inside and the grit and fight that you have to have for that position. Meanwhile, there's more athleticism and strength and just overall savvy at tackle. And Lewan's one of the prior to the injury, he was one of the top athletes, top to bottom on the entire roster for size and pound for pound. I'm looking for Radins to win that job, and it should not be a big factor after the joint practices. If we don't know that he's the guy after that, then I think there's room to really start asking some questions about what's going on, because they haven't made it a point yet to put much pressure on Radins with Petit Frere, and I don't see that happening day one of the joint work either. I think it would have to be something that Radins isn't doing well that would signal a rotation there.
See, I had this theory that I was super excited about, that I thought Petit Frere could potentially be, in this competition for the right tackle position. But I think over the past few days, what I've seen is that might not necessarily be the case. It is early.
Give it a couple weeks.
It is early.
It is. I mean, keep in mind, this is generally the time frame where if you have a rookie or if you have a guy who you think is a solution to depth or to working into a part of your game plan and rotation on game day. We're seeing it right now with Kyle Phillips. Kyle Phillips is now working up a notch. He's gone up a shelf in the rotation. They've inserted that in now over Mason Kinsey. We knew that was going to happen at some point, and it happens around week 2, going into week 3 of camp. So we may see some guys adjust where they are in the rotation, and that's where I'll peek ahead to say, okay, maybe we've got more of a battle here. But right now, I think it's pretty clear that Radins has the right tackle job to lose, and he certainly can. I mean, we were kind of saying the same thing last year, and then they went to work against another team. And on the inside, while they may rotate some guys, I think Jamarco Jones in Seattle is what they signed him to be here. He's a swing guy that's played every position on the offensive line. He provides great depth, which they have needed over the last couple of seasons. And now they can slide in an undrafted guy who has worked his way up to a starting spot, which you can do on the offensive line at guard, instead of, as we've seen the Titans do, draft a guy in the top 10. I mean, this is how you work your way in as an O-lineman, in many cases on the inside in the NFL. And I think they've done a nice job of making sure that they bring guys along the right way on the interior. Now it's about on the outside and protecting the edges.
Jonathan Hutton, we appreciate you. I know these guys will chat with you next week.
It was great chatting with you guys, and Caroline, you especially. Great to hear your voice on the radio.
Thank you.
Jared gives you no airtime. Willy,
what are we,
DMase,
chopped liver
thank
here?
you for allowing her to talk.
What's up?
Jonathan Hutton, is
Especially
the best.
Caroline.
Outkick 360. Well, hey,
You got to recognize. You got to recognize.
I'm new to the show. I'm like the
it.
shiny new toy up here. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, we'll get into your thoughts, your calls, your phones. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It is Chase, Willy, and DMase on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And you are listening, and we are in the final countdown to the fall sports season. There it is. And before everyone hunkers down in their man cave, we are providing the ultimate date night opportunity. A pair of tickets to see Michael Bublé at Bridgestone Arena on Tuesday, August 16th. Tune into 102.5, 106.3 all next week for your chance to win, presented by Blend Bar.
Let's put the green flag in the air and turn them loose.
Nashville's home for NASCAR.
He's going to try to make a big move here.
Is brought to you by the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. We are your racing station.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
Genesis Diamonds is opening up the vault with our largest GIA Diamond event ever. Starting Saturday for a limited time, all our GIA Diamond engagement rings will be marked down 20%.
That's 20% below Genesis' already unbeatable price. This means you can buy like a dealer buys with deep discounts on over $10 million in stunning diamond rings.
These remarkable savings are on every GIA Diamond engagement ring, from a half carat to 20 carats. All shapes too. Rounds, princess cuts, cushion cuts, emerald cuts, ovals, pear shapes.
Remember, all Genesis diamonds are hand-picked, come straight from the diamond cutters, and are graded by the GIA, the most prestigious gem lab in the world.
At Genesis, our everyday prices are unbeatable. But for this event, we're taking value to a whole new level with an additional 20% savings.
Don't miss this chance to save like never before on that exquisite diamond ring. Buy like a dealer buys.
Starting Saturday for a limited time, exclusively at Genesis Diamonds. Limit 1 per customer, please. Green Hills and Cool Springs. See store for details.
This September, the Chainsmokers hit Music City at the Blended Wine and Music Festival. 24 bands, 2 stages, 1 weekend, all under the Nashville skyline. Performances by the Chainsmokers, Loud Luxury, Sick Kick, Fetty Wap, Breland, and more. September 10th and 11th, the ultimate social experience drops in Music City. Enjoy a massive 100-foot wine tent, culinary village, and wellness lounge. Get tickets now at blendedfestival.com.
Houston Clinic Orthopedics wants to thank their patients for voting them the #1 orthopedic practice in the Nashville Scene Poll for 3 years in a row. Their physicians specialize in spine, joint replacement, knee, hip, upper extremity, and other orthopedic conditions. At Houston Clinic Orthopedics, they adhere to all CDC guidelines for the patient's and staff safety. To experience world-class orthopedic care and see a list of all physicians, visit their website at tn.houston.com and book your appointment online today.
I'm Cindy Mae Johnson from Mountaintop Media in Pikeville, Kentucky. You may have seen or heard about the flash flood disaster our people have suffered, but I promise you no news story can accurately convey how much help is needed. Lives have been lost, homes destroyed. If you're willing or able to help even a little, donate to the East Kentucky Dream Center on Venmo or at ekdc.raisegiving.com. That's ekdc.raisegiving.com. Thank you.
If you've got a yard, you may plan on digging in it, like to build an addition, put in a pool, or bury your pirate booty. But you should know that throughout the country, there may be pipelines buried underground. And if you hit one, you've got trouble. Sorry. So before you dig, call 811 to have any buried pipelines located and marked at no charge. For more tips on pipeline safety, visit pipesafety.org. A message from the Tennessee Gas Association, Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
I love this show.
Never miss a moment of the show.
Okay, all right, okay.
Subscribe to the Chase, Willy, and DMase podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. This is Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Chase, Willy, and DMase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, and on the Game Nashville app. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. Go to your phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Viking Matt texts in and says, well, of course the Titans have the tougher schedule. They won the division. And, well, yes, of course, that's what's going to happen. You win the division, you get a tougher schedule, but I think the difference in just how difficult how much more difficult the Titans slate is than the Colts, I think is the biggest thing here.
Well, it's specifically the quarterback.
The quarterback comparison.
That's what we're trying to. I mean, it's obvious that when you win the division, you get a tougher schedule. But some years, it turns out to be more distinct than others. And
some divisions may just be more top-heavy.
No question. And as we know, when the season unfolds, things change. And when you face teams, they don't seem to be as good. Right? I remember one year, Derek, you guys played the Buccaneers, the final game of the regular season. Remember this? 2003? 2003? Yes. Steve McNair was hurt.
Neil O'Donnell.
Billy Volek got hurt.
Oh, it was Billy.
They had to sign Neil O'Donnell out of retirement, right? But the Buccaneers at that point, they were the defending Super Bowl champions. But at that point in the season, there were 7 and 8 or something. They had all kinds of guys hurt. They just weren't the same. But when that schedule came out, you're like, oh, man, Titans-Bucks, last game of the season. That's going to be unbelievable.
Grind.
But you guys beat them easily with Neil O'Donnell, who had just come off the street. And he played a really good game, and you guys beat him soundly. So it was, by the time you played that game, it didn't seem like that tough of a game. You guys expected to beat him, and you did beat him.
Yeah, we did. I think I had 2 touchdowns that game, if I can remember. Yeah.
Okay.
But that,
I didn't.
That was Neil O'Donnell's last game.
I didn't realize that was the case. What you brought up, that Billy got hurt, because I remember Billy as being the backup, but I remember him because he played a lot. Was it the 04 season? 03, 04 season?
The following season, when
he played
Steve
a lot.
McNair got hurt, Billy Volek
played a
had
lot.
to play
That's
a lot.
where, not that.
You guys threw for a lot of yards, but gave up a lot of points.
A lot of points.
Yeah.
But the previous year, I don't know, I always had Neil in my mind, like he was the backup.
Well, remember, it was kind of a surprise move at the end of camp. The Floyd Reese and the Titans were kind of out of salary cap money. Billy Volek made a lot less than Neil O'Donnell, and so they made a really tough call. Neil O'Donnell was really, really not happy about that. He didn't know he was sort of playing for his job, and Volek had sort of come on. So as it turned out, they needed Neil O'Donnell late. He had to kind of go back and kind of
Neil, will you come back again?
Neil, will you come back? And he was like, he's kind of made Floyd sweat a little bit before he said yes. And then he eventually did come back. It was a good story. But the point is, the strength of schedule can look a certain way today on August the 3rd and look a little bit different on December 1st or whenever you actually play that game.
I mean, think about if the Titans played the Arizona Cardinals just, a few weeks later. Because the Cardinals were undefeated the first half of the season. They looked like the Super Bowl favorite. And then just dropped off in the second half of the season. So it's all about when you get a certain team at a certain point and also just who gets hot at the right time. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll continue to take your calls and your texts on that. But coming up next, we're talking a lot about quarterbacks around the league. But how do we feel about the Titans quarterback room as currently constructed? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It is Chase, Willy, and DMase on 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
This is Phil Tomasino, and this is Smashville.
Cousins put it in front of the score. Tomasino lost it in. 2-0 Nashville.
This is the flagship of the Nashville Predators Radio Network, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Hi guys, it's Andrew. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, today, Wednesday, August 3rd, we're running an unprecedented one-day special you won't want to miss out on. Hillside Medical Clinic uses the most powerful form of wave therapy. This is a technology clinically shown to repair blood vessels and improve blood flow. We can now get rid of your erectile dysfunction without any pills. If you're ready to transform your love life, grab your phone. Today is your day. Call us now and you'll qualify for the assessment and ultrasound totally free. Also, a gift that can produce powerful results in the bedroom in minutes. You're going to love that, guys. And today only, we're offering 5 tune-up treatments to our patients free. This is our most lucrative offer ever, worth $1,000, but call today, Wednesday, and qualify totally free. 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your love life back. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now to qualify. This offer ends today. 615-576-5000.
The train is right on time. Here comes the American Band, Grand Funk Railroad. This Friday night at Schermerhorn Symphony Center. Featuring Don Brewer, Mel Shocker, Bruce Kulick, Max Carl, and Tim Cashin. Tickets on sale now at NashvilleSymphony.org. Grand Funk Railroad, live.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job?
Not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
Or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hungered in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungeredInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Your home for Hit City is 94.9 The Fan.
Your Nashville Sounds continue their series against the Norfolk Tides from Virginia. Swing and a miss, strike three. Sounds win. Pre-game at 5:20.
On your home for Sounds baseball, 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
Hey, it's ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck on Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Mike, first day of pads, how nice was it to have, Robert Woods, Farley both out there and taking another step in their recovery?
Well, I mean, it's just another step. I don't think that, really it wasn't, I didn't give it much thought. I just want to make sure that what they're doing is helping them and that they're progressing and they keep responding well to the work that they're doing. And then, I think that there's pretty much a full workload. There's a couple of drills that they're not doing, but we've known that for a while.
That was Mike Vrabel after the Titans' first padded practice on Monday. A professional down player, Mike Vrabel. But, hey, $20. That buys you lunch, a pizza, a cold beer. You could put in a new pair of shoes on the feet of a homeless child in Middle Tennessee. So that is what Souls for Music City is all about. Raising money to make that happen. So will you help us in that effort? Text DONATE to 615-737-1025 and make a $20 donation more if you'd like. But $20 is all we're asking for. So let's make a difference in the life of a child, one pair of shoes at a time. And thank you for your help. So I think one big storyline going into training camp is, what is Malik Willis going to look like? Of course, Ryan Tannehill is a big story, not just in training camp, not just in the regular season, but, just off season as well. Just the whole story surrounding this Titans team has been Ryan Tannehill. But spending a third-round pick on Malik Willis, I don't think anyone expected Malik Willis to come in here and instantly compete for a job coming in from Liberty, dealing with one-word play calls, dealing with the competition in college football that's much lower than maybe some other rookies that are coming in here. But I think one big thing that I wanted to look out for as the pads came on and as rookie minicamp and OTAs went underway was, what does Malik Willis look like? How is he grasping a little bit more of a complicated offense? Because let's say, knock on all the wood, Ryan Tannehill breaks his leg and Logan Woodside pulls something, I don't know, and Malik Willis has to go in. I mean, that's kind of far-fetched, but it's also a realistic thing that could potentially maybe happen. Let's look back at Dak Prescott, who was drafted in the third round and was the third-string quarterback and ultimately became the starter that season. So I was always thinking, what is Malik Willis going to look like? But this was Ryan Tannehill yesterday about Malik Willis's development so far as a quarterback.
How have you seen Malik come along early in training camp?
I'm excited to be working with Malik, and he's done a good job of trying to do what we're asking. You'll have to ask Pat or Todd or Coach Vrabel, on evaluating him. But I enjoy working with him. He's a really good dude. He's coming with a great attitude and is trying to get better. So, from my seat, that's all you can ask for.
So a glowing recommendation of Malik Willis's character from Ryan Tannehill, but not necessarily anything about on the field or his development as a quarterback. If the Titans do find themselves in a certain position where they have to go to the backups, how do you feel about Malik Willis and Logan Woodside and this quarterback room as a whole? Because based off of that and based off of what I've seen in practice, I don't feel that great about it.
Well, if the Titans are in a battle with Indianapolis and it's 4 games left, or 5, and Ryan Tannehill goes down, you might as well just hand it over to Indianapolis at that point. Unless the defense is number 1 in the league and Derrick Henry is back to being Derrick Henry. But still, if you have no threat of a passing game, what's going to happen? We saw what happened when you shut Derrick Henry down or minimize Derrick Henry. We've seen it. Baltimore did it. Cincinnati did it in the second half. Kansas City did it in the AFC Championship game. they didn't completely shut him down, but they minimized his impact on the game. And the quarterbacks couldn't do enough to win the game for them. So if Ryan Tannehill couldn't do it, what makes you think Malik Willis or Logan Woodside would be able to do it? If they lose Ryan Tannehill, I mean, I try not to say it's over because
it's over.
There's more factors,
You could
but
say it's over.
It's over.
It's darn near over if those two guys have to play. It is not a indictment on Malik Willis because he shouldn't have to play. You know, he's not ready to play. Exactly. He's not ready to play. I understand how people feel, and you know, some people, he should be the backup quarterback. He should be the starter. Whoever thinks he should be the starter, you need to reevaluate how you look at quarterbacks. But even to say he should be the backup, the kid is still learning, and he has a lot to learn. So if he has to come into a game at any point to be a starter, that's not good. Logan has to come in at any point to be a starter.
But I don't even know if I feel great about Logan Woodside coming in as the starter.
We don't know. And for the Titans to have to go into a game, not just one game, but a stretch of games with someone other than Ryan Tannehill, that's not good. I can envision them, if that did indeed happen, them saying, you know what, we're bringing in a veteran quarterback. Because at this point, we just don't trust the two guys.
And that's pretty scary.
Exactly.
It's not like Joe Montana's sitting on the street ready for a phone call, you know. But I have always said, I think we probably have not given Ryan Tannehill enough credit for his durability. He has not missed, knock on wood again. We've done that a few times today.
A whole lot of that today.
He's been healthy since he's been here, and that is to his credit. So we have not had to find out about Logan Woodside. I think what you described, Derek, is probably the case for 25 teams, right? If they lost their starting quarterback to a season-ending injury in Week 5, their season is shot. I mean, there's very few examples over the history where that has happened and a team is still rebounded. Matt Castle had a pretty good run for Tom Brady the year that Tom Brady tore the ACL, but they didn't make the playoffs, right? But he played pretty well.
They did, and it finished 11-5.
Yeah, he did better than people thought. But it's hard. There's not a lot of those. But the question really is, can Logan Woodside get you through for a couple weeks? If it's a sprained ankle, you're out, you got to miss a game, you got to miss 2 games. Can that backup get you a win or two? That's really the question for your backup. And we don't know the answer for Logan Woodside. And as far as Malik Willis, I'm not seeing where he figures into those plans this year at all. To me, the question is, how much can Malik Willis learn by the start of next training camp or by the end of the season when they have to decide whether they're bringing Ryan Tannehill back next year and what to do about quarterback next year? How much he learns behind the scenes, how comfortable they are with him is everything in that decision. That's a huge decision. I don't even want to think about that right now because you're thinking so much about this year, but that's really the question for Malik Willis. I don't know about you guys. I'm not envisioning him playing any significant time unless it's an emergency or a serious injury situation.
And even still, I don't know if I think the Titans would feel comfortable about Malik Willis. Malik Willis is not even anywhere near ready. But that's okay. It doesn't mean the Titans made a mistake in drafting him. John Robinson even said it was a risk, and it was. You know, you take a flyer on a quarterback in the 3rd round. If he works out, great. If he doesn't, then that was a 3rd-round pick, and you can move on from it. So that's okay. I don't want anyone to hit the panic button, but I think that you bring up a fair point in next year. I heard y'all's conversation with Tim Hasselbeck yesterday talking about how he thought it was a year plus for Malik Willis. Well, if it is a year plus for Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill does resemble more so the 21 Tannehill than the 19 or 20 Tannehill, let's not throw that out as a possibility, then what's the Titans' plan? Do they stick with a Ryan Tannehill who's been regressing? Or do they try and move on to a Malik Willis that may not be 100% ready? Do they start to find a new solution at quarterback? I think that's an interesting 2023 conversation that we have to keep in mind for 2022.
I would hope. My goal would be to have Malik Willis be ready to be the backup next year. In a perfect world, Ryan Tannehill plays really well this year, and you want him back next year. But as we know, The bar is set high, and next year they do have an easier way to move on from him salary cap-wise than they did this year. It was virtually impossible for them to do it. Nothing was impossible, but you just knew that the $38 million, it was just going to be too tough to change quarterbacks. Next year is maybe not the case. So he'll be a year older. How does he do this year? We'll see, but I would also hope that Malik Willis is ready to be the backup next year. That's a reasonable goal. I think it's a bridge too far to say he would be ready to start next year. So if you had to move on from Tannehill, you still have Willis, but maybe you find a placeholder, the equivalent of a Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm not saying you would bring him back, but somebody like that is always out there you can have for a year while you still see what Malik Willis is doing. It's not ideal because you want Tannehill rather to be that guy.
Well, if Tannehill ends up having a 2020 year or close to it, I think in their minds, keeping Tannehill another year is a viable option. It's more of, okay, after this season, like you said, Willie, has Malik Willis learned enough that now we can make him the backup to Ryan Tannehill? Because I think this is Logan's last year, period. I think this is his last year. And I think it was a signal by them drafting Malik Willis that if he comes on, then, next year he will be the backup. Ryan will be the starter. And then they hope that after Ryan's done with his contract, he'll be 36, I believe, then they can usher in their next franchise quarterback, who they hope is Malik Willis. Because they'll never be in a position, I don't think, as long as Vrabel and Robinson are together, they'll never be in a position to draft a top-tier quarterback because those guys are usually top 15 picks. Really
at least
top 10.
Not in the next couple of years.
Exactly, absolutely.
They're not going to be bad enough. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on that. But how is this offense going to look with Tannehill under center and with Tim Kelly? Jonathan Hutton brought up a very fair point about what is going to be the identity of this offense. We'll try and break that down coming up next. But first, Willie, tell us about Loan Pronto.
Okay, let's talk Loan Pronto. They're rescuing a lot of home buyers right now and homeowners with great mortgage rates. They've got 30-year fixed APRs in the 4s, 15-year APRs that start with a 3. So lots of people are refinancing to do home improvements or refinancing to just pay some bills, whether it's tuitions, credit card bills, car loans, whatever it is. If you need some cash, right now the rates have come back down. So lots of folks who had to take out loans with 5% and 6% rates just a few months ago are now refinancing to shave hundreds off of their payments. So Loan Pronto will get you the lowest rate no matter what your goal is. Not all lender mortgages are created equal. So Loan Pronto is known for being the low-rate leader. So give them a call. You can even skip your next 2 house payments in the process. Call 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
And here we go! Every Tuesday at 11. The Music City Grand Prix is green! Chase, Willy, and DMase will get you set for the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix by talking to some of IndyCar's best drivers.
Pleased to be joined by Scott Dixon.
I can't wait, man, and thanks for having me on, and looking forward to getting back to Nashville.
Weekly driver interviews are presented by Social Furniture, where we sell comfort. Shop local, shop social at 5412 Charlotte Avenue, and by the Nashville Sheriff on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
From the Fox 17 News Code Red Weather Center.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobis. Today, highs in the middle 90s. And then you factor in the humidity will feel close to 100 during the afternoon. The possibility of a few isolated showers and storms. Most of us stay dry throughout today.
Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face truck today.
Midstate Sports fall registration is going on now. Register your child ages 3 through 13 for soccer in East Nashville and Old Hickory. Adults can register as an individual or a whole team for softball, sand volleyball, soccer, flag football, kickball, and basketball. Info at midstatesports.com. Looking for a career with purpose or have that passion for youth development? Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee provides a safe place where youth gain the tools to learn, lead, and reach their full potential. And that starts with you, offering competitive pay and free after-school care for employees. Learn more at bgcmt.org.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try Ziprecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. Ziprecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
This week's Nashville's best deal is from River Queen Voyages. It's a fun and unique way to cool off in Nashville this summer. Nashville's River Fun Authority gives you the best views of the city with skyline kayaking, river scavenger hunts, and a party pontoon with your own captain. Book your downtown river adventure at riverqueenvoyages.com. And while supplies last, get half off a $50 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals. That's thegamenashville.com/deals.
Hey guys, Jeremy here, General Manager at Blend Bar with Davidoff Cigars. We are the go-to spot in Nashville for the best old-fashioned, a nice relaxing cigar, and lots of high-end spirits and wine. Are cigars not your thing? No problem. We have the best ventilation system in the industry that provides a fresh, clean atmosphere for you and your friends. We are here to provide you a trendy, upscale experience in the heart of downtown. Check us out at 508 Church Street. Blend Bar with Davidoff Cigars. Luxury redefined.
Robbie Stanley.
To avoid non-contact injuries and not repeat last year,
Joe Rexroad.
Just wait until next year's national TV schedule comes out.
Robbie and Rexroad. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk. ESPN 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
I'm ready to step this up a notch.
You're listening to Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Chase, Willy, and DMase, Caroline Fenton, in for Chase McKay. We are live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. We had Jonathan Hutton, Outkick 360, on the show earlier, and he brought up a very fair point about how Tannehill can look better in 2022 with the addition of Tim Kelly, with the addition of Austin Hooper and Chikakonkwo, because that's been my number one question that I know it will not be answered probably ever, is what is Tim Kelly's role exactly? DMase, you brought up earlier in the show, well, Jim Schwartz was brought in the defensive side of the ball, and the Titans' defense looked a whole hell of a lot better. Mm-hmm. You could say that's on the hands of Jim Schwartz. You could also say, well, the Titans brought in Bud Dupree and Danico Autry and really bolstered up that defensive line. Mm-hmm. Is it a combination of two of those things? Very much so, but that's an answer we won't have. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I wonder about Tim Kelly. What's his role on this offense? How can he kind of transform this Titans offense to resemble the 19 and 20 Titans rather than the 2021 Titans? So, and Jonathan Hutton brought up a very fair point about the quote-unquote bread and butter of this Titans offense. It's a running offense. As long as Derrick Henry is your running back, this is going to be a run-first offense. But where does the tight end come into play, I think is a very fun question to explore.
Well, as we explore, I am a little bit distraught because, number one, the Braves hit a home run. They're leading the Phillies 1-0 in the top of the sixth, and I'm worried about my Mets a little bit here. Big pennant race between the Braves and the Mets. Also, I put there it is, look. Dagwood's my man. What happened?
Dagwood to the rescue.
He rescued, but where did he find it? Where was it?
There's not really too many places where it could be within the vending machine.
It was on the side? I thought I checked the side.
Yeah, well, I guess you thought wrong.
First of all, this is what we have a new vending machine in the studio.
Machine.
It's new and it's technologically advanced because now you can put your card in the machine. I went old school and had the quarters. because that's a long story too. I had to go to the coin laundry for one of these travel tournaments. I had to wash the uniforms and stuff, so I got a ton of quarters left over from that. Pumped a lot of quarters in there. Heard the drink drop. Knew it had to be somewhere. I couldn't find it. I thought it was just gone. I thought it just got locked down in there. But thank you, Dagwood. I feel much better now.
Dagwood.
Now I can answer the questions about the tight ends.
Well, just the Phillies are down now, but it's just one.
Okay, one at a time.
But
one
you got your coach
problem
to help you. Yeah, to help you get through the rest of the segment.
But Hutton brought up a good point, DMase, in that going back to the days of Delaney Walker, right? This team the last several years has loved the 2 tight end sets. They've relied heavily on tight ends. It was not as much the case last year. Football Outsiders, last year without Jonnu Smith and the change to Todd Downing, they ran a lot more 3 wide receiver sets. In fact, they had been in the top 3 in the NFL every year in 2 tight end sets since 2014. That's going way back to Delaney Walker. So they went away from that bread and butter a lot more to 3 wides last year. Now they've changed the tight ends around again. They've changed all the wide receivers again. They brought in the passing coordinator. So I think it's a wide open question. How much 2 tight end are we going to see? How much 3 wide receiver are we going to see? What is the bread and butter, ideally, for them? Do you have a theory on what you'd like to see? Or would you like to see them go back to 2 tight ends more and have that be sort of the base set? Or do you want to see them spread it out a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I'm a former wide receiver. Put 3 out there, 4 out there. Let's roll.
Hey,
let's go to work. 4 wide receivers.
I should have known who I was asking that question to.
We don't need a running back. No, you need a running back. Historically, with this team, anytime they've had quote unquote great seasons or advance far into the playoffs, they've had a dominant run game, really good defense, and the passing game, with the probably exception of 3 or 4 years in there, the passing game was okay. Now there been some periods where the passing game was really good, or the passing game was just pedestrian. But through it all, it was their run game and their defense. We saw what happened last year when Derrick Henry got injured. Now, they still were able to run the football, but not as effectively without Derrick Henry. They were still able to, Dante Foreman was still, that's why he ended up getting paid.
Surprisingly well, right?
He ended up, being a really good backup to Derrick Henry. But teams didn't look at their running game the same as they did when Derrick Henry was in the backfield.
The box isn't going to be stacked for Deontay Foreman like it is Derrick Henry. No disrespect to Deontay Foreman.
And sometimes it should have been stacked because he was running hard.
It seemed like it was as seamless of a transition into the Deontay Foreman era as it could be.
Exactly, and that's what you want as an offense. But in every situation where this team has advanced or been really, really dominant, they've had a dominant run game. Some teams, they can kind of go back and forth. Pittsburgh can kind of go back and forth because they had Big Ben. So, they didn't rely as much on the running game as they did when Jerome Bettis or some of those other guys were there. But their defense was always top-notch. With the Titans, they have to get back to the foundation of this organization. Going back to Earl Campbell days. You must be able to have a physical presence in the run game. That's where it all starts. They've never once deviated from that. When they've had those really, really good seasons, it's been because they were able to turn around, hand the ball off, play action, throw the football. When they don't have that ability to turn the ball around, turn around and hand it off, and defenses are scared, then it makes it more difficult. But if Derrick Henry gets back to where he was, which I think he will, that's regardless of them bringing in Tim Kelly, that is their anchor, the run game. They must be able to run the football. So with that being said, they got to go back to 2 tight. They have to. That's the bread and butter of what they do. That's what Vrabel knows. That's what that offensive line knows.
It's definitely what Arthur Smith knew.
Exactly. Arthur Smith knew. This organization, the DNA is run and play great defense. That's the DNA of the Houston Oilers, Tennessee Titans, except the years when Warren Moon was just airing it out.
Run and shoot.
And you see what happened in the playoff game. They ended up losing after they were up 30 points almost. Why? Because they didn't turn around, hand the ball off, and just eat up the clock. You have to have that ability to turn around, get a ball to the running back, and the running back pounds the defense play after play after play. If the Titans can't get back to that, if they start to get all fancy, they're going to end up in the same position they were in last year.
And I think, last year, they didn't have the tight end personnel to be able to support that kind of offensive scheme. Now you have Austin Hooper. And with Chigakonkwo, I like what I've seen from him so far in practice, but also I think he could be a fine starter, come week 1. I think that he can fill into that role as just being a pure pass catcher. I think the blocking needs to evolve a little bit, and that I'm sure will come, and I'm sure that'll be a big emphasis in the offseason and as the season plays out. But I think the biggest thing here is, do the Titans have the personnel to be able to support that? And right now where it stands, I think they do.
And I think Swaim, him being back, knowing his role, how much does he play? He's not going to catch a lot of passes, but he's the blocker.
Right.
We'll see how, what's the combination? If you're going to play 2 tight ends, is it Swaim and Hooper? Is it Hooper and Okonkwo? Can you figure out how to get both of those guys on the field? I'm curious about that aspect of it, if you want to go more 2 tight end.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on that. But coming up next, a little bit of a Titans breather, because Jarrett Stillman has a Tennessee Vols theory, and I think that it is so not true. So I'll get y'all's thoughts coming up next. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. It is Chase, Willy, and DMase on 102.5, 106.3 The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
Your speaker at home is so smart that even Alexa knows where to find Nashville's best sports talk.
102.5 The Game is Nashville's best sports talk.
Ask Alexa to enable 102.5 The Game. Once enabled, ask Alexa to play 102.5 The Game.
Welcome to 102.5 The Game.
We are Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
With your home value up again, you are sitting on a pile of money. So don't let it sit there. Use it. Willy Donick here for my friends once again at Loan Pronto. Introducing Loan Pronto's Equity Line of Credit program. You don't have to refinance, but you can access up to 97% of your home's value. Get cash now to pay off all your credit cards, or do that home improvement project. Get your down payment for a new home, or stash away for a safety net. You can get $50,000, even $100,000 or more out of your home. And the payments are crazy low. Think what you could do with $100,000 right now. Loan Pronto makes unlocking your equity easy, and they can probably even waive the appraisal. Don't just let all that home equity pile up. Turn your house into an ATM machine and get the cash you need. Call Loan Pronto now, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Hey, it's Jared from my friends at Hiller. It's back to school season, and Hiller is giving you free backyard upgrades all month long. Tackle those necessary home replacements in August to take advantage of these special deals, like a free Yeti Tundra cooler with the purchase of a new tankless water heater, a free Traeger wood pellet grill with the purchase of a new whole home generator, and also Hiller's going to keep you cool for back to school with special limited time financing promotions on these HVAC replacements. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Happy you'll be, or the service is free.
I'm Cindy Mae Johnson from Mountaintop Media in Pikeville, Kentucky. You may have seen or heard about the flash flood disaster our people have suffered, but I promise you no news story can accurately convey how much help is needed. Lives have been lost, homes destroyed. If you're willing or able to help even a little, donate to the East Kentucky Dream Center on Venmo or at ekdc.raisegiving.com. That's ekdc.raisegiving.com. Thank you.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne,
Robbie and Rex Road, Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Stoney Company, Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
We had pass rushes.
Awesome Game 7. Checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Now let's see if we can bring them to life, all right?
bringing you entertainment and informative sports talk during your workday.
Smart, funny, classy, and I like him a lot.
This is Chase, Willy, and DMase with Chase McCabe, Willy Donick,
Mason, touchdown, Tennessee.
and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, and on the Game Nashville app.
This is a new level of geek you got going on here.
Chase, Willy, and DMase, Caroline Fenton, and for Chase McCabe. We are live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios, and we are streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Our video streaming is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry, and Chase, Willy, and DMase is presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, a York-certified comfort expert company. Schedule now at springhillac.com. So Jared and I had this discussion yesterday, and he has a theory that he believes is fact. And I just don't necessarily believe it. And I think this year is different than any other year. And Jared's theory is that nobody cares about the Tennessee Vols going into this season.
Huh?
Now, I think that that's something that you could probably say.
Not one person.
Not a single person. No one. No one. Just because he doesn't care.
Okay.
And I have made this accusation to him before. And I think this was like maybe one of my first couple of months at the station. I said, Jared, I just don't think that you like college football very much. And he was like, no, what do you mean? I love college football, whatever. But the more and more I work with him, the more and more I realize he just doesn't like college football that much. And he's not excited for the Tennessee Vols season. I think that not being excited for the season is something that you could have said maybe a couple of years ago whenever this Tennessee team was kind of down in the dumps and they were just hoping to kick Jeremy Pruitt to the curb. But I think this year, more than any other year, let's say in the past 5 years, Tennessee Volunteers fans or people in this city or even college football fans alike are excited about this team. Because I understand Josh Heupel went 7-6 last year, but not with the bowl loss. I don't think that any 7-5 regular season record is created equally. I think that Tennessee fans have been so starved for at least some glimmer of hope, and that's exactly what they got this past year. So I would say not even just Tennessee fans, but college football fans are excited to see what can Josh Heupel do in year 2. What can Hendon Hooker do being named the starter at the very beginning of the season, seeing as though he came in the middle of the season last year? And also, with an SEC East, with Florida being a down year, South Carolina is kind of a question mark. Missouri's not very good. Vanderbilt is not very good. I mean, this is a Tennessee team that I don't think is necessarily going to, beat out Georgia for the SEC East. But for Tennessee fans, that's not necessarily the standard in Josh Heupel's year 2. So I do not agree with Jared at all that nobody is excited for this Tennessee team. Because I was at SEC Media Days a few weeks ago, and a lot of people are very excited about what this Tennessee team can do.
He probably meant Louisville football. I think that's what he
Probably
was
so.
thinking, but Tennessee sort of came out.
Maybe, yeah, he got his teams mixed up.
He got his teams mixed up. The scout from Louisville.
He has been repping Louisville on the field.
Exactly.
At the Titans.
He has.
practices.
He's got his Cardinal red on.
He does look like he's scouting for Louisville.
But if I were
As
an
if you could
LSU
bring
shirt-
back. He was saying he could relegate some players who don't make the Titans. He could bring them back. That was, I guess, his theory.
He was hoping Lamar Jackson would go back.
Yeah.
So he had some eligibility left. But I know if I wore an LSU shirt out there, he'd say Homer.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
of course. Well, I mean, there's no season better within the last, I say, 5 or 10 years than the anticipation than this year, I believe. This team went to a bowl game. The offense was high-powered last year. They're returning their starter at quarterback in Hendon Hooker. They're returning the SEC's leading receiver this year. He would go into his numbers, say he's the leading receiver, returning leading receiver in Tillman, Cedric Tillman. This defense seems to be upgraded with the talent that Heupel has brought in. Offensively, the offensive line seems to be better. Heupel has shown that he's got his footing now in the SEC. And what you mentioned too, Caroline, is the SEC East is not like the who's who.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got Georgia that we all assume will win the East. But then behind that, if you go to SEC Media Days, they don't know who's going to finish number 2.
No.
You know?
Yeah, and that was the number one question that week was, who's the third best team in the SEC? And it's interesting to see all of these teams that were thrown out there because I think in the past it's been very, very clear cut. Who's the top 4 and in the middle of the pack and then the bottom of the pack. That's not the case this year. Florida bringing in a first-year head coach. You know, of course, they returned their quarterback, but they had a lot of their talent leave. Missouri, you don't feel great about. Vanderbilt, you don't feel great about. South Carolina with a first-year quarterback, at least at South Carolina and Spencer Rattler. I'm not incredibly high on him. So it really, I mean, I'm not going to say it's Tennessee's slot to lose because I don't think that's necessarily the case. But it is an interesting landscape of the SEC East that would give Tennessee more of an advantage to take that second spot.
Yes, and my thing is, if they improve their defense with the way their offense played last year,
the defense wasn't great,
and the returners they have at key positions on that team, and what they've added through recruiting and everything else, this team, I think people are excited about what Tennessee can do, not just, you know, obviously in the SEC East, but I think in the SEC as a whole. Am I saying they are a playoff team? Probably not. Yeah. But hey, listen, if your only loss in the East is to Georgia and you beat everybody else and maybe there's a loss here or there somewhere else, that's much more improved than what you were last year. Now you're going to the next season with the recruits, the quarterback that everybody is praising that you went and got for next year. I mean, this team's
pretty penny.
Exactly. This team is even in a better position. It cost them a lot, but hey, it is what it is.
And you have the renewed or I guess increased optimism that you're not going to get nailed by the NCAA.
Yes.
I think they were pretty encouraged of what the penalties look like they're going to be with the notice of allegations. So I think that brightens up the outlook. Here's what I would say. Here's how I would answer that question, though, Caroline, is Heupel's first year, there really were no expectations, and he did pretty well, better than a lot of people thought. Got him to a bowl game. The bowl game ended up disappointing, but overall, it was like, hey, pretty good first year. Now, if I'm Josh Heupel, I'm I don't want the expectations to get that much bigger. I have seen Tennessee coaches, and they've gone through a lot of them here since Philip Fulmer. Once the expectation level goes up and you don't meet those expectations, that's when adversity starts kicking in, and a lot of those coaches did not handle that part of it.
But the
very
SEC
well.
East is different now than it was
that's
then.
what I'm saying is, okay, it's kind of wide open, so there's a little optimism of, hey, you have a good year. You could win 8. You could win 9. You could finish second in the SEC. So that does what? It raises the expectations, whereas Josh Heupel is still probably thinking, you know what, building the program, I've still got I got a ways to go before I get it where I want it. We're still a little thin in numbers to where we're going to be hopefully in a couple of years. So that's a dangerous trap, I think. And they could have a great year and win 8 or 9 games. But like you were saying, they're going to score. It's a question of how well can they manage the defensive part of it, because that's the trickiest thing. When you play that high tempo, you're going to score. But can the defense keep up with you? Can the defense get the key stops? There's kind of an art of winning those, 32-31 or 42-41 kind of games that you're going to have.
Here's my hot take.
Okay.
Of the day. Well, it might be of the hell of the year. Tennessee will beat Georgia.
They'll beat Georgia?
Whoa.
They will beat Georgia.
Well, I will say that.
Why so confident?
I think Georgia has too many holes they got to replace on defense. That was a stout defense last year. I mean, those guys, they had, 3 first-rounders on that defensive front with the linebackers and the D-line. They got a lot to replace. And that's why people are so, back and forth. Like, after you beat Alabama, you should come into the next season the favorite to win again. But because of what they lost on defense, I think Stetson is a good quarterback, but people are still not quite sold on him.
I'm not sold on
him.
See?
Yeah.
I mean, he just won a national championship.
No, but he can win this year. I'm still not sold.
Absolutely. So
you got to see more.
He's just one of those
So
guys.
to me, And I know Jared is probably screaming, "What? Oh, no." But to me,
2 o'clock segment. Tune
exactly.
in.
I believe Tennessee. This is the year they beat Georgia. I do. Now, will they win the East? I don't know. But beating
because they've beaten Georgia and Florida before, but they did not win the East.
Absolutely. So I think this is the year that they beat Georgia and they put themselves in a better position to win the East.
DMase is raising the expectations.
I think they beat Georgia.
But if you were a coach, you would want to temper expectations a little bit in your second year, wouldn't you?
No, not really.
You can't control
your expectations have to be high.
Well, I get that part of it, but I'm talking about from a public
From a public standpoint,
to me, that's the
yes
mistake. That's
and
what
no.
happens to a lot of teams in the SEC, but particularly for Tennessee.
But if you believe in
everybody
what you're
starts
doing,
drinking the Kool-Aid and over expecting and not being more satisfied with the slow build. I actually thought Pruitt had gotten the slow build, and then all of a sudden, like he was to the point where he got that raise, he got the extension, right? Which everybody looks back on and says, "What in the world were they thinking?" But they had won a series of games. And they had gotten to the point where they were beating the teams they were supposed to beat. They weren't beating the top teams like the Georgias yet. But he could honestly say, look, I'm building it slowly. We're beating the teams we're supposed to beat. Now we got to get to the next level. And unfortunately, it took a terrible turn for the worse, and we know what happened from there. But everybody's expectations get so high so fast in this league. That's what eats up a lot of coaches in this league, especially at Tennessee.
It's a unique situation that Tennessee is in because this fan base's patience is running very very
They're
thin.
so hungry.
And rightfully so.
So rightfully so.
But you've got to be patient sometimes to build it to where the Georgias and the
there's no
Alabamas have it
patience
now.
in sports. You know that?
Yes, but there's still a building process when you have Georgia, who has that next wave of guys ready to step in for the guys who just went to the pros. I mean, that's the trick, right? You stack the numbers in your favor because you have so many good players stacked on top of each other that you never go dry. Tennessee's not at that point yet. They're trying to. They've got a couple good recruiting classes. They're using the NIL well, but it takes time before you actually have the horses. Now, they could win one game given Saturday against Georgia. I don't see it. I'm not with you on that, but
you bring up a good point because this is something that I thought about, that Georgia lost more players in the draft than any other college football team in the past has. And I was asking a very non-homer question that why was the conversation after LSU won the national championship and lost 14 players to the NFL draft? Why was the conversation always, well, how does LSU reload? But the conversation with Georgia, who lost even more players than LSU did in that 2020 draft, why is that not the conversation? And
I think it's the head coach.
It's
I think
the
it has
coaching,
to do,
and it's the recruiting. And it's the fact that Georgia's been there before. Georgia being good and Georgia winning the East is not a one-off. LSU, it was. And I think that's the reason why people feel so confident, even though Georgia did lose a lot of really great players. It's the fact that they've been in conversation for a national championship in recent years. They've won the East several times in recent years, and Kirby Smart's just a damn good coach. So to your point, I know that Georgia lost a lot. I don't know if I'm going to say Tennessee is going to beat them, but I could see Tennessee being a giant killer in some form or fashion this year.
So Georgia's lost a lot, but Tennessee hasn't gained enough to overcome and beat Georgia.
But Tennessee has consistency on their side, which I think is a great thing. I mean, if you look at the coaching staff, they only lost, I think, only their wide receivers coach, and they promoted from within. They are bringing back a returning quarterback, returning wide receiver in Cedric Tillman. The defense needs work, and I think that's eventually what will be their Achilles heel is they can put up 85 points, but they'll give up 87.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's interesting. But to say,
and it's fun the first couple years, but when you start losing too many of those, it's all the sizzle that you get by lighting up the scoreboard goes away. I have seen that in a lot of cases, right? That's the double-edged sword. It's really fun at first, and like, even when you lose, like, man, they lost, but what an amazing game that was.
That was
48-45. It was
Ole Miss Tennessee game, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
But after a couple years of that, it kind of gets, the shine goes off of that, and it's like, how many games have you won? If you're winning, everything's fine.
And to Jared's point, I think people are excited about the Vols this season.
Yes, they are.
I think it's
Come
just
on,
him.
you know him well enough now. I mean, come on, he's just dangling the
carrot.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody
Yeah,
cares about
yeah,
the
right,
Vols
right,
now
right.
or ever. So, Jared, I just
Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on that. But coming up next, we've got some fantasy football questions for the fantasy footballers out there. So we'll get into that. But first, Willie, tell us about QC Kinetics.
All right, I will get you ready for the fantasy drafts that are coming up for all of you out there. I've got a couple of questions here for Caroline and DMase. And in the meantime, let me tell you about QC Kinetics. If you're sick and tired of the constant pain that you might be having, Caroline will find this out in another several years here. She's not quite as old as DMase and I here, but we're starting to get this here. Pain in the knees, the hips, the back. I know I can speak for myself at least. You need to be moving pain-free. So if you're really being bogged down by something like this, you probably know the traditional methods. Maybe you've had a surgery or something like that. The traditional remedies are fine, but they're not the only remedies out there. Look into QC Kinetics and the regenerative medicine that they have going right now. They've got clinics here in our listening area and all over America. So this is exciting and new. It's natural, and it's a way to deal with joint pain with no side effects, no downtime. So call and find out more about this because it could be the right thing for you. QC Kinetics, 615-249-4024. It's a free consultation, 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
Join Chase McCabe for Chasing Checkers every Sunday morning at 8 for all the news in the world of motorsports.
Joey Logano gets the very first victory in the next-gen car
while hearing from the big names.
Two-time champion Kyle Busch.
Being able to bring NASCAR, the Cup Series, back to Nashville is cool.
It's Chasing Checkers, presented by Ample Collision Centers and the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway.
On ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Winning this award is truly like winning the Super Bowl of car dealer awards for Mercedes-Benz.
Edwin Vickery, General Manager of Mercedes-Benz of Music City.
Culture eats strategy for lunch. You have to hit on all cylinders to win this award. You can strategize all you want. You got to still have the right tools, and our tools are our people.
Live the dream with three-time Mercedes-Benz Best of the Best Award winner, Mercedes-Benz of Music City. Go to mbofmc.com.
Now's the time to make a message known. All working-class Tennesseans vote no on Amendment 1 this voting season. Right to work does not belong in the state constitution. Hardworking families deserve to have their needs addressed in today's economy. Visit TennesseeWorkerAlliance.org, paid for by the Nashville Building Trades.
Genesis Diamonds is opening up the vault with our largest GIA Diamond event ever. Starting Saturday for a limited time, all our GIA Diamond engagement rings will be marked down 20%.
That's 20% below Genesis' already unbeatable price. This means you can buy like a dealer buys with deep discounts on over $10 million in stunning diamond rings.
These remarkable savings are on every GIA Diamond engagement ring, from a half carat to 20 carats. All shapes too. Rounds, princess cuts, cushion cuts, emerald cuts, ovals, pear shapes.
Remember, all Genesis diamonds are hand-picked, come straight from the diamond cutters, and are graded by the GIA, the most prestigious gem lab in the world.
At Genesis, our everyday prices are unbeatable, but for this event, we're taking value to a whole new level with an additional 20% savings.
Don't miss this chance to save like never before on that exquisite diamond ring. Buy like a dealer buys.
Starting Saturday for a limited time, exclusively at Genesis Diamonds. Limit 1 per customer, please. Green Hills and Cool Springs. See store for details.
Your company's hiring. Who isn't? We would love to show you how to use 102.5 The Game to attract and retain employees. We can also help you find the exact person you're looking for with a targeted digital campaign. You can trust our team to help you build your team. Email us at together@cromwellmedia.com.
It's on. It's happening. Remember, you can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter.
Get out of the way. I'm watching the game.
Presented by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. This is Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Chase, Willy, and DMase. Caroline Fenton in for Chase McCabe. Hey, you can tune in for Nashville Sounds Baseball tonight at 5:35 p.m. on 94.9 The Fan. The Sounds are on the road facing the Norfolk Tides, AAA affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by 312 Pizza and Farm Bureau Health Plans. We've got some questions for the fantasy footballers out there as NFL training camps get underway. Who's looking like the good ones? Who's looking like ones that you maybe probably shouldn't draft for your fantasy football team? Willie?
All right, so Caroline, this is what we're doing. We're trying to take this piece by piece here. We're trying, because when you start saying, let's talk fantasy, it's a vast group of people out there, right? Everybody wants to know the sleeper, things like that. We just take it one small bit at a time. So I have 3 questions each day that I throw at you guys. And so weigh in. Just tell me what you think. This is, all of us have to make these decisions. When we prepare, you don't know who's going to fall. So question number 1, for example. Ezekiel Elliott. He is now becoming that age where you start wondering, can he still be the dominant, productive guy? He fell off a little bit. He's had issues. And at the same time, Tony Pollard has, alongside, been a pretty productive guy. And so he sort of closed the gap on the production between the two. So what is a realistic expectation for Ezekiel Elliott? Is he still a guy that you would draft and put as your running back number 1 in your fantasy? Would you feel comfortable, or are you sort of almost looking at them as a tandem now in that second tier where I want Pollard, I want Elliott, but I'm not going to use a high pick on either one? Ezekiel Elliott used to be a hands-down first 10 pick, right, on a given year. So, Caroline, you started.
I don't think I'd touch Ezekiel Elliott. I think the ceiling, the absolute ceiling for Ezekiel Elliott is 1,000 yards, and I think that's where everything has to go right. I mean, his past 2 seasons, he's been right around that 1,000-yard threshold. I think there's other running backs out there. If you can get a Jonathan Taylor, you get Jonathan Taylor or a Dalvin Cook, or even, I understand that Derrick Henry is going into the season with a question mark. I'd take Derrick Henry over Ezekiel Elliott because I think Ezekiel Elliott's been on the downward trend for much longer. And I do see the Cowboys now as more of a running back by committee with Tony Pollard. I mean, he is a hell of a football player.
It's pretty good.
Would
you go as far as to say you would take Pollard over Ezekiel? Or are we not there yet?
I don't know if I'm necessarily there yet. But I would say, take Pollard in a later round if he's available. I mean, I think that'd be a solid later round pickup. He'll get you a few consistent points week in, week out. But for me, Ezekiel Elliott, absolutely not, especially not in the first or second round.
So maybe the old handcuff tactic, draft one and then try to draft the other a couple of rounds later so you have them both?
Yeah.
That can work well, and that could also drive you crazy.
Yeah, it can. I'm with Caroline. I think Zeke is a 1,000-yard rusher. Now, he has the possibility to still get 1,100, maybe, just maybe 1,200. But the way the Cowboys are using these running backs the way they're using them now is in a way that they want both to be healthy and ready to go during the playoffs. Because if you look at their carries, Zeke got 237, Pollard had 130. Both of them averaged over 4 yards per carry. Now, Zeke had more touchdowns than Pollard, but Pollard had more receiving yards than Zeke. So they want to continue. They believe that the only way that they're going to continue to win is that they use these two as a 1-2 combo. So, I mean, I would draft Zeke, but it wouldn't be early. It wouldn't be in the first 3 or 4 rounds. I wouldn't, because what you're going to get out of him is about 1,000 yards. He'll probably get you double-digit touchdowns, but he's not going to give you much in the passing game because I think that's more relegated for Pollard.
It's interesting. Ezekiel Elliott tore his PCL last year in Week 4, played through it.
And didn't miss a game.
Did not miss a game. And he did get 1,000 yards, but it is interesting how he's gone – every year he's gone down the last couple of years. It's the expectations. Like you guys were both quick to say, not automatic for 1,000 yards. And he's kind of at that point. But I do wonder, could there be a bounce back if he stays more healthy? All right, that's question 1. Question 2, life after Tyreek Hill for the Chiefs. They bring in Juju Smith-Schuster. Always a fun name to draft, right? when you draft Juju, hey, I got Juju on my team. He's had his ups and downs the last couple of years, but now puts on a Chiefs uniform and he gets to catch passes from Patrick Mahomes. So what do we like? Where does he slot? Here are the Chiefs wide receivers. Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, another fun name to say, Juju, and then the wild card, Josh Gordon. I had to do a double take. I was like, the Josh Gordon, the guy that was on the Browns and all the marijuana. Yeah, they have him. I don't know where he fits in all this, but he's got Patrick Mahomes throwing to him. He's 31 now. But where does Juju fit in all this? Would you like to have him on your team? Derek, you start this.
Nope.
Round.
I mean,
Nope.
He's after the injury, he just was never the same player. He wasn't. And just because now I put him with, arguably the second best quarterback in the National Football League and Patrick Mahomes, some may say he's number one. But even if I put him with Patrick Mahomes, I don't think he goes from, I don't know how many yards he had last year. Maybe let's say that 600. He goes from 600 to now 1,000. I don't think that's the case because I still think he's the third receiver in the rotation. So would I draft him? No. He's one of those guys where if you see him on a waiver on a week you may need, then pick him up, or you're drafting him like in the last round. But there are other guys you can draft before him.
No question. At Carolina, I'm really curious. Now that Hill's not there, we know Travis Kelce, they're going to go to him as much as they can. But who fills the other roles? Like, where do they reinvent the offense? Because Hill is such a difference maker, and they don't have him.
I mean, I think that's the golden question that I really don't have an answer to. I mean, you lose Tyreek Hill, you lose 1,200 yards of offense. And that's exactly what I was going to say, is if you are going to pick up any sort of Chiefs pass catcher, I say go with Travis Kelce. And that seems like a very obvious thing to say. Yeah. But, I mean, Juju, I think, has already hit his peak. I believe Juju was on my fantasy team in 2019, so I have a very bad taste in my mouth about drafting Juju Smith-Schuster on my fantasy team since he had 550 yards that year. And that's my biggest question mark about this Chiefs offense is you have Patrick Mahomes, so you know that you have trust in your quarterback. I don't know how much trust I have in the pass catchers outside of Travis Kelce.
Juju only played 5 games last year, signs with the Chiefs. Football Outsiders projects 74 catches, 772 in terms of yards, 6 touchdowns. So that'll be a dilemma for everybody, knowing that Patrick Mahomes is going to throw the ball to somebody other than Travis Kelce, at least a few times, I would think. Who do you want among that other group of wide receivers? All right, third and final question today. All right, straight up, you got 2 running backs. Let's say your computer spits these 2 names out. You need a running back. Cam Akers of the Rams or James Conner of the Cardinals? Who would you rather have? Cam Akers, a lot of expectations, a lot of talent, been injured a lot. You're on a really good team in the Rams, and of course you got a high-powered team in the Cardinals. James Conner was pretty good last year, but he was hurt some. So who would you rather have on your team? You want to jump in there?
I lean James Conner.
Okay.
Just because when you have a quarterback with a strong arm, like Matthew Stafford does have, and you're throwing to Cooper Kupp, one of the best wide receivers. And I would also say if he's available in the first round, whenever you're drafting, you take Cooper Kupp because I had Cooper Kupp last year, and he single-handedly won me my fantasy division. I lean James Conner just because with no D-Hop in the first 6 games of the season, I think that Kyler Murray is really going to start relying on the running game. So I think at least in the first half of the season, I lean James Conner.
So remember, Cam Akers hardly played last year in the season, but
Achilles
he was ready.
injury, right?
But he was ready for the playoffs, and he sort of became a go-to guy. So you kind of wonder, what does that translate to in a real? If he's picking up where he left off here, also knowing that their running game a lot of times is to throw the ball to Cooper Kupp with the blockers in front. They really design it well, so it's almost like an easy running, pass play that's more like a running play. So where does that leave Akers as opposed to Conner?
I'm taking Akers.
You like Akers?
Yeah. Because the previous year he had almost 700 yards, and I don't think he was a starter that year. He only played 13 games, if I can recall. Last year he only played 1 game.
1 game.
And in his offense, because of what you're able to do on the outside, it's going to open up holes for you, to run the football. We've seen that with Kansas City, 2 years ago, I believe, where because they were so explosive, it gave those running backs holes to run through because you have to pay attention to what they're doing in the passing game. Same here with the Rams and McVay. You got to pay attention to what they're doing in the passing game. So I'm taking Akers. I think he's going to have I think he will be in the running for Comeback Player of the Year.
Interesting. Football Outsiders projects almost 1,000 yards, 969 with 8 touchdowns for him.
Interesting. That was fun.
Okay.
That was fun.
See?
I like
All right.
that. I'm going to win everyone their fantasy league.
You are going to be ready for your draft, Caroline. And you'll be thinking, Willie got me ready for that one.
Well, I have
those 2 running backs are going to pop up on your screen. You're like, we are.
I've actually thought about this.
Yes.
I'm on the clock. Yeah. I've thought about this. I have a fantasy title to defend. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. And coming up next, Judge Sue L. Robinson made her punishment for Deshaun Watson known on Monday. The league has 3 days to respond. By the time that Chase, Willy, and DMase is on the air tomorrow, will Roger Goodell have a response? Let's get into that coming up next. It's Chase, Willy, and DMase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
It's training time for the Two-Tone Blue, and we have you covered. Talking Titans? Join us live from training camp for interviews and reports, giving you the latest on the Titans.
There's a lot of guys that are making an impact on me, both good and bad.
I like some of the depth. I think that's the key right now.
Training camp coverage is fueled by Parman Energy. Visit ParmanEnergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey, football fans. Dak Prescott here, and I'm here to tell you that with NFL Sunday Ticket only on DirecTV, you can watch your favorite team no matter where you live. Because NFL Sunday Ticket gives you every live out-of-market game every Sunday afternoon. So switch to DirecTV and learn how to get the 2022 NFL Sunday Ticket season included at no extra cost. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
With choice package and above, 24-month agreement required. Call for details.
Join 102.5 The Game, Brentwood Fire and Police, the Williamson County Sheriff's Department, and the Nolensville Fire and Rescue for the 9th Annual Williamson County Battle of the Badges Blood Drive, Wednesday, August 17th from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Brentwood Library on Concord Road. This year's blood drive will be in memory of Williamson County Deputy Chandler Rowe. Support the 9th Annual Williamson County Battle of the Badges Blood Drive, Wednesday, August 17th, sponsored by BL Harbert International.
It's a fact. Guys hate going to the doctor. But when it comes to erectile dysfunction and low testosterone issues, men from all over Middle Tennessee have been thrilled seeing Dr. Alderson and their providers at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Men all the way up to 95 years old have jump-started their sex drive and energy levels. Lots of men suffer with ED for years, but now they're able to enjoy sex again. Tom from Nashville said, "The Tennessee Men's Clinic has changed my life. I have been able to be intimate with my wife for the first time in 5 years. She thought this problem was because of her, but the pills never worked for me. I had given up until I went to the clinic and realized there were more options for erectile dysfunction. Now I'm happy and my wife is happy. A visit for only $99, and that includes all testing, including a PSA and testosterone test. Give the guys at the clinic a call at 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090. Or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
Visit our website to learn more, including side effects, treatments, extra, results vary.
Ask Sherwin-Williams during the Summer Fun Sale, July 29th through August 8th, and get 35% off paints and stains with prices starting at $27.29. That means 35% off our most popular color family, blue. Psychologists have found it to be soothing and relaxing, which makes it especially great for bedrooms and bathrooms. And of course, 35% off all of our other colors. Shop the sale online or visit your local Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
5X480. Dayton B100 V-Belt, one of the many parts Grainger carries. It's also the item that helped Rob carry the day. The job was on hold, deadline fast approaching, but a quick search on Grainger.com and Rob found his part. And with same-day pickup at his local branch, he and his crew got the job done, safely and on time. Get supplies and solutions for every industry with real-time product availability. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Robbie and Rex Road here on ESPN. Welcome into Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Stomach Company is delivered.
There's a new way to hear 102.5 The Game. Nashville's best sports talk on 106.3 FM. From downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and to Murfreesboro on I-24. You now have two choices to hear our great sports programming. Get the extra point, no problem. And the Nashville Predators. Scores! Check out 106.3 now and save it as a preset.
Hey, this is Matthias Ekholm. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Has Deshaun expressed remorse?
Again, I didn't read I was out on the practice field, so I haven't read the entire report, but I believe Deshaun has told you guys in a press conference, he's told me privately, he wants to be the best version of himself. I believe that wholeheartedly. He's working on that, and I'll let Deshaun at some point speak for himself. I've tried to just be where my feet are and operate with the information that we have available to us. So, this process is not my process. So it's agreed upon by the PA and the NFL, and all I can do is respect it. Our job as players and coaches to focus on what we can control and do the things that are within our power, and ultimately to do our job. And I think the guys are doing a nice job of that. We understand the questions, we understand the questions that you guys have, but it can't stop us from doing our job right now. I'm confident that Deshaun will make good decisions on and off the field. Obviously, the on-field decisions, he works very hard at that with the playbook and meetings and being on the practice field. And then off the field, Deshaun's no different than the other 90 guys right now and the 53 guys eventually, that we expect them to be great citizens in the community. We have a plan, certainly for practice. As we get closer to the preseason games, we'll make some decisions as it relates to that. But my understanding is that he can play in the preseason games.
That was Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski on Monday at the Cleveland Browns practice facility in response to Judge Sue L. Robinson's recommendation for suspension. The NFL suspend Deshaun Watson for 6 games. So the way that it is currently constructed in the NFLPA is that if Judge Sue L. Robinson said no punishment for whatever cases come her way or whatever cases come to this, mutually negotiated arbitrator in this instance and in future instances, if they say no punishment, then that's it, no more. But if there's any sort of punishment that comes up, whether that's a quarter or whether that's an entire season, Roger Goodell has the ability to appeal that, and that would essentially be final say. That if he says, nope, Deshaun is suspended for a season, then that's what it is. Deshaun Watson is just suspended for a season. Or Roger Goodell has the right to say, okay, we uphold the recommendation from Judge Sue L. Robinson. But Roger Goodell has 3 days to respond or to appeal or to approve. By tomorrow at 10 a.m., when y'all go on the air tomorrow, do you think Roger Goodell will have a response? And what will it be? Because I have my thoughts, but I want to hear y'all's.
He will have a response. I think he's obligated to, because the NFL, PA said, listen, we are not going to appeal. They came out with their statement. We're not going to appeal. We're satisfied with the judgment. We're moving on. The NFL hadn't said anything yet. So I think some form of fashion, there will be a statement made. They got to get over the statement they just made yesterday. So it had to go through a whole news cycle.
Timing,
exactly. And now they're going to give another statement. I was listening to your show yesterday, Carolyn, and Jared said he guaranteed that, Goodell will come in and say, we're going to give him 16 games and we're going to do a year. I'm not guaranteed that he's going to get on there and say, listen, we're going to give 16 games, because here's the problem that they've put themselves in. When they had a chance to do this before, they didn't. And every situation after that, the NFL never stepped up to do morally do the right thing. And to me, this is no different. I've heard some of the comments from, owners and players, more specifically, whether it be someone that may have, been caught in the act, of certain things. We've heard what they said, or Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm talking about Kraft, Ben Roethlisberger,
right.
guys that have been in this situation. We've heard with some statements they made possibly about this whole situation, but when the NFL had an opportunity to really step up and show that we're not going to go for any of this stuff, this nonsense, we're done with it. When they had the opportunity, they didn't. And nothing in their history tells me this is any different. Again, I told Willie, if it doesn't have anything to do with gambling, and if they don't have a videotape, even though they had a videotape on Kraft, but they didn't see it, if they don't have videotape, they are slow to move. They do not. It's like we don't want to cause too much of a fuss. In the Ray Rice situation, they had to. But you see what happened at first. At first, it was 3 games. And then when the tape came out, it was, oh, my goodness. Now we got it. And they only really gave him, 6 games? And then it was because of Ray basically got blackballed from the NFL because of what he did. I don't see this being no different. I don't think Goodell's going to come out and say 16 games for Deshaun Watson. I don't think he will.
I kind of hope that the penalty ends up being more than 6 games, and I do kind of think that even if the penalty remains 6 games, people are going to it's going to be such a weird feeling because there's such a sense by the vast majority, 80-90% of the people think the sentence or the punishment is light. There's a price to be paid when you start coming back. I think you just heard the tone of Kevin Stefanski. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, we actually are going to have him after 6 games. I don't think they were expecting that the punishment was so light. So if you're Roger Goodell, you're sitting there reading Judge Robinson's decision. Everything that she lays out there pretty much agrees with the case that the league made for a year suspension. The problem she apparently had was, look, you guys have a weird system of how you delve out punishment with this kind of thing. She used the precedent of that kind of punishment, the personal conduct policy. She didn't really like the policy, so she didn't feel good about setting a precedent. But at the same time, I don't know how you could have a precedent for this particular set of circumstances. So if you're Roger Goodell, you've got to be pulling your hair out saying, we made a great case. She agrees with everything we're saying, but the punishment's only 6 games? What do I do? Here's the important thing going forward. There's going to be another thing like this where an arbitrator rules. So what's the right thing to do as the commissioner? Be a dictator, basically, and say the independent arbitrator that we both agreed on, I don't agree with her, so I'm doing my own punishment. Why have the arbitrator to begin with? So that sets a really bad tone going forward, I think. So with that in mind, I don't like the decision at all, but I think he's going to stay with the 6 games. I don't think he's going to add to it. I hope he has the guts to tack on because to me the punishment is light, but I don't think he will for that reason.
And I'm with you, Willie, that I think it should be longer. I said it should be a season, and I stand by that. And I think that would be a big statement. You bring up Ray Rice. I think that Roger Goodell could make a very big statement to everybody and saying, we're basically undoing our wrongdoings with how we handled Ray Rice. I think it's a large statement that the NFL is committed to making this a more welcoming league for women. I mean, now that you have female referees, female coaches, female broadcasters, females in executive positions, and you have a large group of female fans that's making a large statement that, hey, we respect and we honor the women who were affected by what Deshaun Watson did. But I don't think that he will. And for what you bring up, Willie, that it might send the wrong message that, hey, we agreed to this CBA. And we agreed to bring in, a third-party arbitrator to negotiate all of these things. And then now the first chance that I get to just, assert my dominance on it, I'm going to do that. I think that sends the wrong message. And I think also Roger Goodell, the NFL just wants this to be over with. And the longer that you drag it on and then the more that you change it, I think the more it gets into the news cycle. I think they like where they are, that it's a little bit buried in the news cycle at this point. I think they want it to go away.
Well, if he comes out and says a year, the PA, they have to appeal it. They have to. That's their job, is to appeal things for players, regardless of
but do they can they appeal?
No,
because
they can. They can appeal.
They can appeal the appeal?
They can appeal the appeal, yeah. Because
well, then can the league then appeal their appeal?
No,
where does it stop?
No,
it has to stop somewhere.
It's with anything, any punishment, whether it's fine. I can appeal it as a player.
Yeah, you can.
And the PA, but they have to back me.
That's what's so screwed up about this system. Where do you go? Back to the arbitrator? Like it has to end somewhere. That's why it should end with the arbitrator.
It should end with the arbitrator.
That's where it should
end with and that's why I'm with you, Caroline. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to leave it as is because we brought this third party in, so we didn't have to make the decision. Right. We gave you all the information. You make the decision. We may not be happy with it at the end, but this is the process. I think he's going to go as much as he may not like it, or as much as he will be pressured into, doing something. I think he's just going to take a step back and get this thing out of the news cycle as quickly as possible. Because if he don't, this is going to keep on going and going and going. And to the fact that women may leave the sport, people may hate me for this. They ain't going nowhere.
No, they really aren't.
Women ain't going nowhere. They've said this about the NFL. I said this yesterday. The NFL is Teflon. The only thing you're going to get them on is tax evasion, and you ain't going to get them on that. But everything else, the NFL is Teflon. They will get through it. There will be a lot of uproar, rightfully so, a lot of protesting, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, like anything else, no one's leaving the table, which means you're going to have a few. But they can deal with a few, but as a whole, women are not leaving the sport because, one, if I love the Titans, I'm gonna watch the Titans as a woman.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna watch the Titans if I'm a woman. If I love the New England Patriots as a woman, I'm gonna watch the New England Patriots. I don't care about the Browns.
Well, that is the question though. How creepy would you feel if you're a Browns fan? Like you're
if they're winning, Willie, they don't care.
Well, I think
if you're winning.
That's the sad part. I think it probably would get to that point pretty quick. But that first game, can you imagine when he takes a snap at the preseason game? Even a Browns fan's gonna be going, this is a little creepy.
It feels a little icky.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on that. But hey, do you want to go see My Chemical Romance on August 23rd at Bridgestone Arena? Willie's got a trivia question for you. Be the first one to answer that question right, and you are going to see My Chemical Romance on August 23rd at Bridgestone Arena.
All right, here we go.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
From the Fox 17 News Code Red Weather Center.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobis. Today, highs in the middle 90s. And then you factor in the humidity will feel close to 100 during the afternoon. The possibility of a few isolated showers and storms. Most of us stay dry throughout today.
Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Hi guys, it's Andrew. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, today, Wednesday, August 3rd, we're running an unprecedented one-day special you won't want to miss out on. Hillside Medical Clinic uses the most powerful form of wave therapy. This is a technology clinically shown to repair blood vessels and improve blood flow. We can now get rid of your erectile dysfunction without any pills. If you're ready to transform your love life, grab your phone. Today is your day. Call us now and you'll qualify for the assessment and ultrasound totally free. Also, a gift that can produce powerful results in the bedroom in minutes. You're going to love that, guys. And today only, we're offering 5 tune-up treatments to our patients free. This is our most lucrative offer ever, worth $1,000. But call today, Wednesday, and qualify totally free. 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your love life back. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now to qualify. This offer ends today. 615-576-5000.
This September, the Chainsmokers hit Music City at the Blended Wine and Music Festival. 24 bands, 2 stages, 1 weekend, all under the Nashville skyline. Performances by the Chainsmokers, Loud Luxury, Sick Kick, Fetty Wap, Breland, and more. September 10th and 11th, the ultimate social experience drops in Music City. Enjoy a massive 100-foot wine tent, culinary village, and wellness lounge. Get tickets now at blendedfestival.com.
Smokeville Smoke Shop has been serving Hendersonville and Metro Nashville since 2015 and is committed to providing high quality, hands-on, and personable customer service. Stop in the Smokeville Smoke Shops in Hendersonville, Gallatin, Hermitage, and Goodlettsville to try any of their wide selection of locally sourced products and selection of top nationwide brands including vapes, hookah, hand-blown glass, detox systems, e-juices, kratom products, leaf wraps, a dab bar at the Hendersonville location, and much more. Visit Smokeville Smoke Shops today.
Hey, it's Jared for TriStar Moving. If you're looking to move, you need to give my friends at TriStar Moving a call. At TriStar Moving, you'll get 5-star service throughout the entire process. Everything will be taken care of, from covering your floors, banisters, railings, front door thresholds, furniture, TVs, and more. They took great care of my move and made it as stress-free as possible. If you're looking to move, give TriStar Moving a call, 615-640-1219, or visit them at nashvillemoving.org/radio and get 5% off your entire move. TriStar Moving, my official movers.
Jared Stillman.
If you get 3 games where he doesn't turn the ball over, you're going to the Super Bowl.
Caroline Fenton.
I don't know if he would be open to joining another team.
Stillman and Company. Afternoons from 2 to 6.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
On Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
I'm ready to step this up a notch.
You're listening to Chase, Willy, and DMase.
Presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Hey, this week's Nashville's best deal is from River Queen Voyages. River Queen Voyages gives you the best views of the city with skyline kayaking, river scavenger hunts, and a party pontoon with your own captain. Sounds fun. Get half of a $50 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals while supplies last. So if you would like to go see My Chemical Romance on August 23rd, be the first one to answer Willy's trivia question correctly.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the tight ends for the Tennessee Titans. Derek Mason points out, traditionally, it's been a strong position for the Titans. They got a new mix in there. What's going to happen with Austin Hooper? How much 2 tight end sets are we going to see? So we talked about since they had Delanie Walker pretty much, they love to run the 2 tight end sets. They went away from it some last year, and that was part of our question. So Delanie Walker became a Titan in 2013, signed as a free agent, came over from the 49ers, where he was the backup, and then, of course, had a great run. Who led the Titans in tight end yardage the year before Delanie Walker became a Titan? So in 2012, what tight end had the most passing, receiving yards at tight end? 2012 Titans, 737-1025. So who preceded Delanie Walker pretty much? Who caught the most passes for the most yards at tight end the year before Delanie Walker came to the Titans? 615-737-1025.
So it wasn't Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman is incorrect.
Wrong sport, DMase.
So be the first one to answer that trivia question correctly, and you are going to see My Chemical Romance at Bridgestone Arena on August 23rd. And Willy, bring up the tight ends, and that's been an interesting conversation that we've had today, is about what does this new tight end role for the Titans look like this season? Bringing in Tim Kelly, an offensive coordinator that has shown that he loves to use a 2 tight end set. Bringing in Austin Hooper, and I think Austin Hooper is kind of an interesting one because you saw what he did in Atlanta, and he had way more production in Atlanta. He goes to Cleveland, and he kind of takes a step back. And we were talking about this in our show not too long ago about, kind of yardage expectations or maybe yardage ceiling and floors for who I expect to be the top 3 pass catchers in Treylon Burks and Robert Woods and Austin Hooper. There are some people out there that are expecting Austin Hooper to have 550 yards receiving. Based off of what y'all have seen and how you think Tim Kelly can kind of put his fingerprint on this offense, do you think that's realistic?
We've talked a lot about, Treylon Burks, and he's shown up, and he's made some wild plays. And we've talked about Chig and what he's been able to do. He just looks like that tight end that we need. We hadn't said anything about Hooper. I don't know if that's good or bad. If they brought me in as a free agent to bolster this and to be the lead in this tight end room, I need to be showing things where people walk away from practice like, wow, we got us a good one here. Those years in Cleveland, I don't know what went on, but here he looks like the guy. We're not saying that.
Not yet.
We're not saying that.
Not
So
yet.
hopefully in the next couple of weeks with teams coming in to practice against us and then the preseason game, we will change our view on Hooper, what he looks like now. Because right now, based upon what I've seen, he has about 500-600 yards.
Really?
That would be quite a bit more than what he had last year. You know what's
Now,
interesting?
what's big for me is touchdowns. If he has close to, if he has like 7-8 touchdowns, I'm good with that. Yeah.
Efficiency too is such a big thing. Like how often are they targeting him? How much do they need to target him? But last year, when you look at the results, his numbers were really not that different than Anthony Ferguson, the guy that he's essentially replacing. They're trying to upgrade from that. Now, back in the day when he was a younger player and playing in Atlanta, he did have some really good seasons that would match the numbers you're throwing out there, Caroline. So that's a real big wild card. Is how does he take to the offense? What role does he end up playing? How much do they need and feature him in the game plan? Because I can see a scenario where they don't really have to feature him that much if Burks and Woods are doing really well, they're running the ball well. But I also could see a scenario where they need some production from tight end. And then what does Chig give you? That's the other one, the rookie.
That's another
Total-
wild card.
total
What
X
could he
factor.
develop into? But that is going to do it for us today. Thanks for letting me hang out with y'all.
Yeah. Okay.
Man,
Real
those
quick-
4 hours went
Real
fast.
quick, the answer to the question
Went fast.
was Jared Cook. He was the leading tight end receiver before they had Delaney Walker. The
well-
Jared Cook era.
Who's the winner?
Do we have the winner? Do we have the name?
Wesley Williams.
Wesley Williams.
Enjoy My Chemical Romance. But that's going to do it for us today. Stillman and Company is up next, breaking down Titans training camp so far.
I'll come in
We'll
here
see
in a
y'all
break.
tomorrow at 10 a.m.
The MTSU Blue Raiders live here.
Middle Tennessee. 3-ball, yes, sir.
And when you're in the borough, tune us in on 97.5.